Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the another amazing audiobook. Today, I want to take a moment to thank the amazing author of this novel. Their creativity, imagination, and hard work have brought us this incredible story that we all love and enjoy. Truly, their talent is inspiring, and we owe them so much for creating this wonderful world. If you love this novel as much as I do and want to support the author, please check out the link in the description. Supporting them helps ensure that they can continue to create more amazing stories for us to enjoy. And if you enjoy the audiobooks I create and want to support me, you can become a Patreon member. As a Patreon member, you'll not only support my work, but also get the chance to request novels that are freely available on the internet. Depending on your Patreon tier, I will work on creating an audiobook for your requested novel. So let's show our appreciation to the author and keep this amazing community growing. All the details you need are in the description below. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
Winter. When most things stop, hibernate, and nothing really gets done. A time when I remember how my parents were trying to make a little brother or sister to me. Well, times have changed. Now, it was my turn to do it with Sasha, and we were getting pretty good at it. She even started initiating it when night came. I could get used to it. Sadly, not everything can go on forever so smoothly. The first problem came knocking in right in the middle of winter. We had a day when the cold was so severe that some of the exposed pipes cracked. The water froze solid in them, expanded, and destroyed parts of the aqueduct, especially around the foot of the mountain. Those that were buried survived without any problems. The earth itself was a good insulator and would not let the water freeze. The problem was those that were above ground. Is it really bad? Sasha asked as I was returning at sunset, taking off multiple layers of clothes while patting the snow out of my hair. Manageable. I chuckled, letting her help me undress. We built it in segments, so it is easy to replace parts of it. Luckily, not the whole line is busted, but it will set us back around a month or so. Hopefully, next winter, it won't come to this. You have an idea what to do to prevent it. We can use straw and hay to insulate them, but my best option is to keep the water flowing. Still, water freezes much more quickly. That is what happened now. We checked the castellums, and they are fine for now. It's not a big deal, so I wouldn't really worry about it. What I had to worry about came in the spring. The moment the snow started to melt and we began warming up, I set goals for my people and sent them to start working. We couldn't miss any day now, not if I want this year to be the opening of my city. Yet, once again, only a week in, disaster struck. Back at the mines, while going at the ore vein per my orders, the wall broke through. We hit an underground cavern, and the worst thing was hidden behind it when it opened up. Water. Freshly melted, ice-cold water. It was the first time I lost people, 4 in total. The hypothermia got to them before we did, TSK. I felt horrible, not because the mine was destroyed and turned into a mine lake but because people died under my watch. Nobody blamed me. Although, I have a feeling they would dare to do it either way. I made sure their families were looked after, and while thinking about what to do now, I also had to look for a place where we could open a new mine. This was not good, and it was making me tired even refusing Sasha's advances and opting to simply snuggle up to her instead when we went to sleep. I thought about why it hurt so much but couldn't find an answer. I was a soldier before, I saw death. Multiple times. I lost good friends, too. But now it made me lethargic. I didn't get it. Back then, in my world, it wasn't something newsworthy. People died in accidents daily. Hell, it would be celebrated if only 4 workers perished on a day and not 20. Leon. I looked up from Sasha's chest in the morning, letting her play with my hair. Woke you up? But it's okay. You didn't sleep well. Nah, I did. My brain is working non-stop. It wasn't your fault. Maybe. Hard to tell. I shrugged, sitting up with a yawn and a stretch. You would be a good king. It is rare when someone thinks so deeply about his people. I never saw something like that. You never really had a chance, did you not, my little wood elf? I chuckled, making her smack our pillow into my face, which made me laugh even more. What is an elf? She asked in the end, pouting. Oh, they are legendary creatures, beautiful beings who live in the forest, in tune with nature. Oh, well, you can call me that then. She added, with a much more happy voice. After breakfast, we were about to go and oversee rebuilding the broken parts of the aqueduct. Oleg was already waiting for me. Don't tell me someone died again. Grunted, but he just shook his head. It's Merlin. He did something. Sound ominous, so. Will you tell me, or should I start guessing? I grunted, not in the mood to play games. The water in the mines, it's gone. Gone. Sasha and I asked, looking at each other, now getting why he was acting so weird, not finding the words to say. I decided it was best to see it first, so we hurried to the site, where a great hubbub waited for us. Merlin was trembling, afraid he did something nasty, and when he saw me, just like a kid, he burst into tears, saying he didn't mean it. I'm not angry, kiddo. On the contrary. I am amazed. I sighed, rubbing his head, and I wasn't lying. I was barely able to keep my mouth shut. On the ground, just like in Sasha's case, a magical circle was etched into the muddy earth, but this one was active. It was glowing in a blue hue, resonating with the ones the church had left behind. It acted like some kind of control formation or master key. I don't know how to describe it, but it increased the other's effects. The water that flooded the mine was rotating in midair, completely weightless, and the scene reminded me of video feeds from outer space. Looking down, the mine was dried up, and the water behind the hole in the wall was just as weightless, its natural surface tension halting it from flooding in. We copied it, my lord. The other guards came forward, presenting me with a paper and a drawing, and I was surprised to see it was exceptionally detailed. I made a nod, glancing at Oleg, who quickly knew what I meant and led these men away. As he was going to be my general, he needed people directly under him, and I just marked him some valuable guys to consider. Of course, I would still go over the formation, checking their drawing and redoing it for myself, but I was more than happy to see how their minds worked. Somehow. I was starting to feel much better. Did you learn anything from it? Sasha asked me 2 weeks later while I was sitting in our room, finishing a drawing of a replica of the formation that Merlin's mana had left behind. So far, I can be 99% sure that mana surges in an individual follow their desires and correlates to their mental concentration. Both yours and his happened in the same circumstances, the only difference was he was trying to think about something to help me and get the water out of the mine. Ultimately, I decided to put the water back in place. I turned off the formation by disrupting it and watched the extensive body of water drop back like a weird, magical waterfall. The mine was not something I could just reopen like that. Nobody would feel safe to go in and start working again. I had no choice but to look for an alternate place and start up a new one. I already had Oleg go out and scout for a suitable place. This hindered us a lot, but I could do nothing about it. Until he returned with a report of possible locations, I didn't have much to do. I was happy that our progress captured many interest in our small region, and almost 80% of people were now interested in working for me. Why? They got wind of those lucky ones who already had a stone home here with running water and their own fireplace for the winter. The problem lay in those who held some power under my family's rule. I had to do something about them before they went behind our backs and caused some major trouble. Leon. Sorry. I shook my head. I feel troubling times coming. I told you, I was too lucky so far, it had to come back and bite my bottom sooner or later. That is karma for you. What about Merlin? She asked, not wanting me to think about the problems. Yes, so, from what I could gather, what he is good at is enhancing. The one that was left behind by him is extremely complex, so much so I only decoded around half of it. So he is smart, and talented. She murmured, but I just patted her head. From my current standpoint, he is someone who can boost already present magic formations. While yours seems to veer towards the element of fire, his specialty seems to be boosting magic that is already present. It would also explain why he always activates all the formations he gets close to. That sounds dangerous. It is. So there is something I need to get my hands on. I sighed, rubbing my head and playing with my hair. My first book of magic talked about something that all mages use. Magic crystals. Yep. It always made sure to hammer home, a mage has to have one. It helps focus and guide the mana in their bodies and bolster the strength of their spells. Now I am starting to think it is more than that. To me, it seems mana can be volatile. No, that is the wrong word. It is reactive. Your emotions are its fuel, and it can go out of control when you fall into deep concentration. My bet is on the crystal acting as something that helps you take control of your own powers and give your mana an outlet and not just let it explode around you. And where are we going to get that? Even I know that it's something guarded behind closed doors, hidden by the Empire. By the Church. They won't just lend you any of it. I know. My plan is to get some, under the table, through some other, not-so-legal way. Bandits? She asked, raising an eyebrow, thinking about it before nodding. Good idea, but I don't know if they would be crazy enough to attack a caravan belonging to either of the two parties. That is also one of my main fears. But, this is where my parents come into play. Let's go. I stood up, stretching, smiling at her. I told them I would be back after this winter and give them a report. Which was postponed because of the troubles. Oh, and I also need to inform them we are a pair. Haw. It was funny watching her go pink in the face, but it warmed my heart. All the hurdles I was facing somehow looked insignificant at that moment. Heh, I never knew being in love could feel this good. The meeting with my parents were surprisingly formal even for me. They welcomed me as if I were an envoy and acted formally, which I was not used to. It threw me into a loop, to be honest. Sasha wasn't faring any better. She felt as if she wanted to melt into the ground and run away. My mother scanned her from top to bottom whenever they looked at her. It was nothing like our previous visits, not at all. We read all your reports. My father started while we sat in the castle's conference room, facing each other over a wide mahogany table. Do you have anything to add? I blinked, my eyes flusteredly. No, I haven't. I already told you everything. So you are going through with it? He pressed on further, crossing his muscular arms before his chest, looking at me with the eyes of a predator, ready to strike. What the hell was going on here? Did the Empire contact them? Or what? Yes. I answered in the end, starting to feel annoyed and getting aggressive myself. Even if you have problems with it. My ideas are right, and it would greatly benefit our land and people. It would. And it would concentrate the power in our family's hand. My mom interjected, turning her head from Sasha, finally looking at me. And? I asked back, now feeling defiant against their accusatory tone and looks. So what? From what I have seen, they are living in a pigsty. Our castle is not much better. The moment I said it, I thought I saw a dangerous flash go through my mother's eyes, but it was not the time to start backing down. The local nobles won't like it. Father continued, and in turn, I couldn't help but chortle. So what? They have power because of us. They were appointed to lead some sectors. Oversee food production, hunting, the security of the towns, and so on. Are they really nobles? I don't really see them that. They are the same as any other civilian under us. The only difference is that they pocketed benefits for themselves, skimming off the top that is coming from our rule anyway. Are they unhappy? Why should I care? They have power. Bullshit. I slammed at the desk. They don't. I have the power here because all the people who have been working with me in the past summers realize what I am doing. Especially now that the skeleton of my work is getting visible and they could experience the barebone functions, keeping them warm through the winter. They still have influence over many and can raise an army. An army. I smirked at my mother. We have the army right here. Which is under my rule. Father boomed, and they won't leave the walls. If these so-called nobles, I shouted back, recruit peasants to fight for them, I am confident in standing out and calling those people to my side. They won't have any army to speak of. They can hire mercenaries. Mother added nonchalantly, which I had no answers for. Yet. I am still confident in dealing with them. I will deal with them. It has been set into motion, and if you are starting to doubt me now, then I am sad to say it is too late. I will go through with it. These nobles can suck my dick. If they want, they can join me to start their own businesses. I won't stand in their way to make a fortune. But if they think they can stand in my way, then I will grind them into the ground and make them into the fertilizer for a better future. Huh. Mother exclaimed softly, forming a smile and elbowing my father, who was also trying to hold back a grin. He inherited the best things from you and me, it seems. I told you. Let's push him a little and place some pressure on him to see if he buckles or has the backbone of mine. Bwahahaha. Good kid, good kid. Was this some kind of test? I stammered, looking at Sasha, who was trying to look invisible, already sinking below the table, dragging her long hair into her face to not be part of the family feud. Yes, it was. My parents said simultaneously before my mother stood up, continuing, some of the local nobles are here longer time than our family, you see. They are complacent in holding their current powers and don't want to give them up. They won't give it up. Whether our region is small or poor, they count as the top dogs here. You accompanied me multiple times, and you saw me handling them carefully. The reason is simple, they do have control over their little areas. Like how a cock struts around their little pen. And you won't help me deal with them. I whispered, and I wasn't accusing them. I get it. They just can't. If they do, the others would send for help, telling the Empire we are rebelling. You are at the point where you have to start worrying about their reactions. They have started taking notice as more and more people slip out from under their fingers, going away to do some weird project of ours. Some already came to us, demanding an explanation. They did. I asked, leaning back and watching my mother, who smiled and nodded. For now, I dealt with them. But this won't hold for long. Okay, I expected something, but not so soon. I whispered, my brain going overdrive, nibbling on my thumb while doing so. Had any plans for this stage? I hope you did. Father spoke up after a minute of silence, interrupting my thoughts. Yes, I did. I was just undecided, but now I got more information. Out with it and be clear. Mother ordered me, leaning forward, wanting to hear everything. First, I will draw away the people. That will not change. What about the food production? Mother immediately stopped me, and her gaze was like knives. I won't bring everyone away. But things will change. I am planning on changing it up. Our crops yield so little because we are on a highland, so we need to switch to those types that can withstand the worst soil. With that, I pointed at my report papers, which I had already detailed on multiple pages. I am no expert in the field, but this should do. Then we can try terracing, but that will need much work. I would try it more confidently if we had earth mages or something, but, oh well. I read that. My mother whispered, holding back her excitement, but I caught it in her eyes. That is not something we can accomplish right now. I am more interested in the part about the livestock and crop rotation. And then you already know if we focus on what I outlined, we need fewer people in the countryside with a more significant yield. If my industry gets to an operational level and I can churn out superior tools, their life will also get simpler. It is a win-win situation. Plus, I continued, looking at my mother, maintaining eye contact. We can import food from your homeland. We already do it a lot, in fact. Even if they are somewhat subordinate to us, they won't just give away food. I wouldn't ask for it free. I am planning to open up more frequent trade routes towards them. You already know what I want to sell. Scented soap. Exactly. I giggled, watching her lips curl upwards. I am not going to give them cheap. And I have other ideas to produce some luxury items that are cheap to make. But for now, yes, my main item would be that. Aiming it at the wealthy. Could work, but dash. I'm not finished. I added with a raised hand, I only answered what I want to do with the food side of the problem. I am going to address the nobles now. With a smack of my lip, I couldn't help but shake my head at what I was about to say. You gave me an idea. About mentioning mercenaries, okay. I will hire my own mercs. And how do you plan to do that? Father raised his voice along with his eyebrows. I spoke poorly. I will hire bandits. What? Not just my parents rose from their seats but Sasha, too. Heard me right. I looked at them, deadly serious. I will hire bandits, thugs, scum. I will aim their weapons at our nobles who wouldn't back down and use them for the dirty work. We can clean them up in one fell swoop when they are finished. This silenced them quickly, and I let them think about it while sitting there calmly. When nobody wanted to say anything, I cleared my throat, continuing. I'm not naive. The world is not kind, and I am not a saint either. I want to create a place where I can enjoy life, and if others stand in my way, I will deal with them. In this scenario, we only lose those who, even if joining me, would try to cause trouble. I don't need partners who can't play nice. On the other hand, we get rid of scummy ones. Our territory has very little in terms of bandits. Even if there are some, they are equipped with sickles and pitchforks. Father grunted first, nodding at me, giving me the green light to continue with my idea. Nope. Not yet. I shrugged, this only came to me now. I was thinking about how we could play it off, and even if someone reports it, we would only scolded for not keeping our borders clean. We would have no link backs to the connection to the bandits, trust me on that. I can point you the way. Mother. I perked up, curious, but she shook her head. Give me time as I need to exchange some letters first with my family. I will do it along with traveling back home and bringing some of the scented soap with me. It should take a month or two, but I'll be back by the summer. Then we will speak about it again. I knew I could count on you. I grinned at my parents, who simply shook their heads. Now. About another important news. She turned back to her serious mode, looking at Sasha, making her yelp and go stiff. Are you pregnant or not? Not. She replied like a soldier. I almost imagined her standing up and saluting. TSK. Then work on it. She grumbled, making me twitch my mouth. I can see the change in you. My son already made you his, right? Then start giving me grandkids. I want 4. No, make it 6. Whoa, Mom, let's not put weights on her, okay? It happens when it happens. I waved my hands after seeing Sasha turn as red as fire, afraid she would accidentally summon a blazing inferno. Yeah. Father joined in, feeling just as troubled, glancing apologetically at Sasha. Don't worry about it, I am sure it will happen. Yes, we are doing it regularly. I blurted out, making it even worse, resulting in me quickly escaping to my old room, dragging Sasha behind me, still hearing Mother yelling from afar, saying she would herself come in and instruct us in which pose makes it most efficient. Geez. I thought my father was a beast in bed, turns out my mother is worse. While my mother was away, going on a trip, bringing away the first batch of soap, and doing some scouting for me, I was back on the construction site. We had a lot to do. First, I marked out the new area where we were ready to open up the new mine of ours. It was not easy, and everyone finally realized how much of a blessing the magic formations were in transporting the rocks away. This time, it fell to me to etch a similar formation down when the new mine. I could only do it when it became big enough to start producing stones for us that we needed to continue building the city. That is when a new surprise welcomed me in the form of Merlin. The youngster watched as I worked, and when I finished the first one, observing it activate and work flawlessly, he asked me to let him try. I didn't expect much, but oh boy, was I wrong. He not only put it down, but he perfectly matched my version. They were identical. I would have adopted him right there if not for the fact his parents were watching excitedly. This meant that I could leave them to continue establishing our new mine, letting Merlin put down the formations, and I could go work on the city. This was the best news possible. Before leaving, I promoted him, well, his parents, to be exact, to oversee the mining group before I returned to the scene of my new city. By now, multiple houses were standing ready, and I was guiding them on how to build around the pipings. I was going around in the meanwhile, installing primitive valve systems. We should have no issues, not after reinforcing and repairing the damages we had in the winter. We should have constantly flowing water, and because of the pressure, I didn't need any fancy doodads. Only a simple open and close gate at the end of the stone pipes in the homes. When someone opened it, the pressure did its job, and water was flowing into the tub, and there it was. A primitive but working bathroom. Same with the toilets. Turn a simple knob, open the seal, and let the water wash it down into the buried sewers, carrying it away. For now, the sewers led out of the city, pretty far away, but that was only a temporary solution. After mining is back to its fully operational level, my long-term plan was to make it go far into the river a few kilometers away. But that can wait. I should focus on where we are now. What was a pleasant surprise was how people got used to it almost instantly. I even caught some discussions between them, mentioning how weird it felt to go back to town and watch others throw the waste on the streets. Good. That is the thinking I want to take root in their minds. Better hygiene, longer lives. Is this really necessary? Sasha asked as I showed her my plans for a fountain in the square that I planned to be where all trading would happen. It would be not just a market square but a whole block. The houses here were different because I was making them out to be shops. They were not for living in, and I think the people here were also realizing it as they got finished. Yep. We need places like this. Where people could come, look at something, and say, yes. This is only possible here. I want them to be proud of their achievement. Also, wouldn't it be nice to walk around here with a fountain that is always on? The real problem is that we need people who can sculpt. I don't want it to be extra fancy, but it shouldn't be ugly either. That is why many in the mines have been chiseling some of the faulty blocks like there is no tomorrow. She chuckled, remembering how many of the workers, even after their shift ended, were trying to make some statues out of stone slabs that were chipped or broken off badly and deemed useless. They do that. Heh. Good. I did announce that the one who gets the job to make the statues for the fountain gets his full name put on it. Oh. That is really generous. She blinked her beautiful eyes with surprise. I know that people would be happy to have a headstone after death. It was still a luxury here. But having their names placed on a work in the middle of the city. That was akin to becoming immortalized. I was about to answer her when Oleg came into the palace, gasping for air, clearly in a hurry. Lord. He bowed, a letter. Oh. I took it hastily as I recognized my mother's vac stamp on it. The two patiently waited for me to read it, and after I did it twice, I closed my eyes, thinking. Oleg, go prepare a squad of the best fighters father assigned under me. Yes. With a salute, he asked no questions but rushed away, fulfilling my command. What's happened? Sasha asked, a bit afraid but also curious. Mother found a bandit group I could use. They called Yuri's Bane Wraiths, which I think is hilarious. Eh? It sounds scary instead. Chunny, if you ask me. What? Nothing. I shrugged. Mother says it is a group led by a young but vicious woman, going by the name of Uribiseta. What a weird name. Oh, it is an Easterner's name. Eh, what now? I looked at her, one eyebrow raised to the top of my face. I read about them. She explained happily as, besides lovemaking, she was reading a lot through the winter. I had to move many more books over from the castle and start building a library wing ahead of time just for her. They have an empire in the east, and ours clashed with them multiple times. From what I read, we occupied half of their country before the current peace treaty. So, there are a lot of Easterners living under our rule, but they rarely should appear here. They tend to stay in their old land and lead multiple rebellions against us. I bet none were successful yet, figures. I murmured, thinking, already imagining a fair, Asian-looking girl. This should be interesting. Well, these brides, wraiths, are a criminal gang that came to power in my mother's birthplace. The region has been having a problem with them for a decade or so, and she writes here that they became even worse since a new leader of theirs appeared. She is this Uribiseta who renamed the whole gang after herself. What will you do? Sasha asked me, holding onto my hand, and I could feel she was extremely nervous. Set up a meeting with them, then try to recruit them. If I can manage to convince them to serve me for my goals, it would be great. So far, from what I heard from father, none of the nobles are interested in any change. Good for me. I can sick my new hounds on them without remorse. You are already talking as if you convinced these evil people to serve you. Confidence, my dear Sasha. I grinned, holding her waist and giving her a deep kiss. I conquered you, no. Bully. Ahahaha. Maybe I am one. Anyway, while I'm gone dash. What? I am going too. She shouted, looking at me with enlarged eyes. Are you a fighter? I asked, flicking her nose. Listen. I am going because it is my idea. I have the cards. My plans are in my brain, and nobody else could do it besides me. I will go with soldiers who are trained against beasts, which are much more unpredictable than humans. but dash. I won't bring you. End of the story. Sasha, you are not a warrior nor a fighter. You are smart and my wife, even if there was no ceremony yet. It is my duty to make sure you come to no harm's way. So you will stay and coordinate the construction in my place. Your strength lies in your head. You understand what I want from this city, so keep helping me build it, okay? But, spells, magic. She sniffed, her eyes going wet in an instant. You can't even cast a fireball yet, no. Come here. I chuckled, hugging her close and stroking her head, and I could tell she was afraid to be abandoned once again, reverting to that of a little girl. I will be careful and back before fall. Promise. Promise. She whispered, not letting me go. Pinky promise. I grinned, showing her how to do it, finally drawing back a smile onto her face. Riding a horse was still a bit uncomfortable, but I was getting used to it. Armed and ready, we were heading to the borders and would soon be crossing over to the home of my mother's family, Lothlia. It was my first time coming this far, and I was excited to see how it fares to my home, and it did surprise me. A lot. First of all, it was like crossing a strange barrier. The mountains were gone quickly, and the hilly, bumpy land soon turned flat. Just as flat as Sasha was when I first saw her. Next, the forests were replaced with a sea of gold as wheat was swaying in the wind, dancing like some kind of otherworldly ballerina. The villages we were coming across were all small, housing the families working the fields and a minor noble who was responsible for collecting the tithe and delivering it. There was nothing outstanding, only the identical wooden houses that made up our towns. When we arrived at their capital city, it was finally time to see something that was more aligned with what a fantasy-esque medieval city should look like in my mind. Of course, that doesn't mean that all buildings were made of rock or bricks, but there were significantly more than in ours. Surprised. My mother chuckled, welcoming me at the gates and leading Oleg and me in while the rest of the soldiers I arrived with were housed in a different part of the city. A bit. Is it more advanced? It's hard to pinpoint what I feel. Yet I know this place is ruled by a baron while our family is a viscount. Our territory is focused on battling the beasts, so all efforts in building it up were concentrated on our castle. This place is not so single-minded, so, of course, it had more time and resources to grow bigger and be a better city. Also, the population in this region is double that we have. Huh. I see. So, am I going to meet with my grandparents then? I asked, grinning, changing the topic. No. Mother sighed, shaking her head, they long passed away. You are going to meet with my eldest brother, the current Baron of Lothlia. I warn you in advance to not let him push down on you, he is a bastard through and through. Even though we outrank him, and they are decreed by the emperors of the past to serve us in our efforts of defending the passage, it also made him cranky. Huh. I grunted, and I also realized why my mother never mentioned my grandparents or her side of the family. So it wasn't all nice and lovely, figures. Noble families and their intricacies. I already hate it. Why? Because he always dreamt about being a knight in shining armor but never achieved it. He wasn't even accepted into the imperial army. Let me guess, it is our fault. Somehow. What I am saying is to not show weakness. Or he will try to exploit it. Also, he does not know why I am here for real. He thinks I only brought the soaps and want to sell them. Introducing you is just the excuse to let you explore the city and make contact with the gang, though. I will be careful. I shrugged, but then she just patted my shoulder, smiling and whispering into my ears. I'm not afraid of that. I wanted to say I would not be angry if you lit a little fire under his butt. You see, I have a younger brother, too, and I would happily see him sit where my idiotic eldest brother resting his useless bottom right now. Ah. I couldn't help but stop and look at my smiling mother. As I said. Noble politics. I hate them. The city of Lothlia, what a contrast to ours. I mean, to the one we have currently, not the one my people are building. There were more stone buildings here, especially in the city center, behind the secondary wall. No wonder, as the nobility made their homes here, they weren't keen on living in shabby, wooden homes like the rest of the populace. But, with a capital B, the smell of shit still permeated around most of the town. Most people were still throwing their waste onto the streets, and I didn't see proper sewers anywhere. Hoa. It looked bigger, it looked nicer, but it was still smelling just as bad. Shame. I was focusing on the buildings, roads, and people here while we walked, mainly to not let my honest thoughts show on my face. Yes, we all walked as I asked my mother to do so instead of taking the carriage. It was good to see that, in the outer city, most houses, even if they were cleaner and more colorful than those I saw back home, were still primitive. The only difference was that they kept it renovated and somewhat decorated. After passing the inner gates and finally entering the nobles' quarters, this couldn't be said to be true anymore. This part of the city was leagues above ours. Clean roads, clean houses, and I even saw servants being out, making sure that the horse shit that some carriages left behind were shoveled onto a cart and carried out of there. Money speaks, as they say, and the nobles could afford to live in a cleaner place. It will sell. My mother smiled, finally speaking, interrupting my thoughts and scrutiny of the homes of wealthy people. I thought the Baron would have bought it all for himself, I answered with a small smile, and she returned it with a soft giggle. He did, but news travels fast. He simply wants to resell it himself at a higher price. He may be someone I think is a bastard, but he is a shrewd one. He knows how to make money. You do, too, no? I whispered, looking around, and my mom didn't disappoint with her answer. Of course. Even more so. So, I sold the batch to him at a higher price than I originally wanted. Then, I met with a few old friends and families, giving them a sample from my own cash. I already wrote up and signed 6 contracts with 6 families who placed an order for a batch at a reduced price. Without him knowing. I added, looking at her with twinkling eyes, and she just shrugged. Why should I tell something to him when he is just a baron and I am a viscount? Touché. What? Sorry. It is a magic word, exclaiming victory over another. It has a nice ring to it. It was a good idea to let you study magic. How's Sasha? Is she pregnant yet? No, not yet, Mom. I answered, feeling immediately troubled as her eyes were strict, questioning, and almost angry, making me feel as if a spanking was in order. You should get a second wife. Someone who is not a Y-, but she stopped, looking around, quickly changing her words, who is not special. We must know. Know what? I asked, grunting, hating that we have to go over this again. That it is not happening because she, or because of you. I feel like I am perfectly fine and functioning right. I countered, but I could understand her reasoning. Son, you are our only child, and I couldn't get pregnant again. Believe me, we are trying to this day. I am afraid you inherited your mother's curse. How do you know it is not father who is faulty? I groaned, rubbing my temple in frustration. He is not. She shrugged, sounding defeated. He had 2 bastard daughters before you, they are currently young maids back home. I made him test his weapon out, sadly, he was so potent that the girl gave birth to twins. They were taking care of you while you were little, and we were attending to our duties, you see, of course, you wouldn't remember that. I remembered that, but never noticed. Holy hell. Mother, you are something else. TSK, but now you also made me worry. What if, arg? I don't need this information right now. Not that it depresses me, but it could cause problems later on. Without an heir, it could be dangerous in the future. Damn it. Okay, calm down, Leon, just put this on the pile of deal with it later and move on. Fuck. The meeting with my uncle was worse than I expected. First, I was made to wait. So much so that my mother got more agitated than me and dragged me to the side room, ordering the maids to serve dinner. I decided to go with the flow and let her deal with everything. If the others see me as just a youngster who has nothing to him, not even his own backbone, all the better. I don't want to be troubled either by relatives or by the Empire. At least, not until I feel ready to stand up to any of them. So, I sat in silence, waiting for food, and avoided any eye contact, even with the servants. I wasn't stupid, I knew some may have been tasked to relay any and all happenings to this douche, so I sat there, squirming here and there, being nervous. I think Mom picked up on it quick as she never addressed my strange behavior, even playing on it a little, telling me to relax already. When he finally appeared, he did so after a maid loudly announcing the arrival of the Baron of the Fertile Fields, Benedict, or something like that. In my head, I was thinking about him, going around the wheat fields, shitting on the ground, fertilizing them by himself. All alone. Maybe that is why the city smelled just as bad, huh? What stopped me from laughing was the procedure I had to perform. Bow, introduction, whatever else, even though I was the future Viscount, that title was yet to be bestowed upon me. So, he was above me but also not. It's a weird situation if you ask me, but I can deal with it. His attitude and the way he carried himself. That was much harder to not comment about. He very quickly waved a hand at me to stop and get back to my chair but continued to ignore me and sat down with a wheeze. I now fully knew why he was not recruited. He barely fit through the double-sided door. I couldn't tell where his neck was as he looked like a snowman who half melted then got refrozen, or something. He was sweating grease and smelled like someone who hadn't bathed for a year, leaving giant patches on his expensive clothes by the simple fact he had to come down from his room. I tried looking for similarities between him and my mother but found nothing, as his face was distorted by the fat rolls attached to it. Eye color. Couldn't tell. Hair. Long and either black or brown, but that brown could be grease and not its natural color. What in the actual fuck was going on? I know people could let themselves go. One of my old friends in my old life did the same. The poor fellow got his legs blown off and went off the rails, but even then, he was aware of his situation and never was rude. This thing that calls himself my uncle. He was berating the servants left and right the moment they were late with the food. Worse, he was constantly cursing at the cook, saying he didn't use enough salt or the food wasn't cooked well enough, yet he was stuffing his face continuously. I hate when people talk while eating and chewing, and I felt sick to my stomach just listening to his slurping and belching. I wanted to throw up. When I was at my limit and looked at Mom, she was not there. No joke, I could not see a light in her eyes. I never saw her like this, but I get it. She was tuning her brother out, already forgetting to be angry and to berate him. Instead, she was like an automaton, sometimes saying yes, or agree, or something else, just so she didn't have to interact with him while he was eating. Fucking A+, Mom. I need to learn that skill. In the end, I had to tell him about my life a little, so I made up some stuff, how I like the simplicity and how I am training to later take after my father, the usual stuff. The moment I brought it up, he began explaining to me his genius plans and tactics, for the next 4 hours. I think by the second one, poor Sun Tzu would have asked for a cyanide pill just to escape. When I was finally let go, thanks to my mother dragging me away, I felt like I was tortured for days. Bastard. Both of us exclaimed the same thing after getting to our room. Don't mention that outside of this room. She warned me with a smile, ha. I totally forgot what I wanted to discuss with him, damn it. Anyway, I will deal with it tomorrow while you go into the city. Here, take this. I raised an eyebrow, taking the small letter from her and reading it through before I tore it apart and threw it into the fire that was burning inside our fireplace. Is the information accurate? It is. Son, be careful. Even if you bring the soldiers along, this city is their home turf. They have an advantage here. We do suspect that some city guards are on their payroll. Don't worry, Mother. I'll be careful, and I am going there to make a deal not to fight. If it goes south, don't worry about consequences. Safety first, the rest I will deal with. If something big happens out of it, try to make it even bigger. Ha. I flinched, looking at my smiling mother, who now looked like a fox, ready to pounce. He is still a baron who is below us, and I could use it as an excuse to start pressuring him so much, even he starts feeling it under that blanket of fat he wears. The next day, early morning, it was time to head down to the marked location. Of course, I wouldn't go alone, that would be stupid and reckless, so the people I brought along, all of them were accompanying me. Being a noble had its advantages, as now I had a sword on my side, and nobody could question me why. And after entering the district where their base was, I was pretty sure they would be used. It was in the northwestern part of the city, and it reeked more than the other side. It wasn't horseshit that troubled me, it was more of the stench of cheap ale and unwashed bodies that passed by us. It was like walking into a changing room of rugby players after finishing the most brutal match of their lives. TSK. Wherever I looked, the wooden houses were old and faded, and some were in complete shambles, propped up by sheer luck and will of their occupants. I knew there were city guards, but probably they rarely ventured into this part of the city, or if they did, they only came when there was a reason for it. I was sure of my conjecture after we walked pretty far, and the watchful eyes doubled, then tripled. Every big city has its streets where the dregs of society gather and where laws become suggestions. Nobody bothers with places like that as people need it. It is like the sewers, where those who can't fit in get flushed down by the rest of society. As long as they are policing themselves and the shit doesn't overflow to the streets, they won't bother with it. Well, I was determined to never let such a slum develop in my city. Lord. Oleg leaned closer, speaking in a low tone, if trouble comes knocking, stay with us. We will escort you out as soon as possible. Thank you for your concern, but if all goes well, we won't need to kill anyone. Or too many. Don't forget that my father also taught me, and I was good at it. Still. Lord, you never really fought before. This is not like training. Well. I know. I shrugged in answer. Yes, and no. In this life, I did not take anybody's. Not yet. Also, he was right in that my father did teach me a lot, but I was not that versed in his techniques. What I was confident in was my previous military training. Even being a techie, basic training didn't skimp out on any soldier. I had to go through the same stuff that a grunt or a marine had to, at least in the first year. We were all taught close combat techniques, be it unarmed or knife fighting. Well, I had a short sword, so it could be applied to it, but we will see. If it comes to that, I can fall back on my knowledge of hand-to-hand combat and use it here. From what I have seen so far, here, it is less developed than in my time. What my father taught me resembled the basics of budding martial arts, but it was still not there. It was born from his experience, and although it had good technique, it wasn't streamlined. Well, it is up to him to refine it. I can't and won't get in his way in that. I will use what I am familiar with, and I am confident that the people here won't be able to cope with it. Simply because it does not exist yet. About taking a life. I don't think I would have an issue with that. It wouldn't be the first one, and when I was deployed on the front, I saw people becoming a mist of gore. I know how it sounds when you stab someone in the back and hear the air escape from their lungs. Keep alert. Oleg hissed, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword, and it was his voice that brought me back to reality. The street was empty, and the houses on both sides were all boarded up. We also reached the very end of the district as the high, gray city walls were casting a shadow on us. When my feet stopped, so did my soldiers, and I listened closely. Even though we were standing still, footsteps were still echoing between the houses, and looking back, the entry was closed off by 5 figures, all women. Huh. I hummed, looking at their leather and fur armor, swords, and shields while 2 of them had crossbows in their hands. In the front, 6 others appeared in similar dressings, except one. She was a woman with a striking body and posture, with porcelain-like white skin, in contrast with her nasty, reddish scars visible on her almost naked torso. She wore a metal plate over one breast that was intact while the other was missing entirely, replaced with a nasty scar. Just one of many that filled her body. I was thinking about what was she wearing under her tight, leather pants. A dick or a pussy? Probably both. Looking at her grinning face, it was also scarred, with one of her ears having a chunk bitten out of it. I knew that because her black hair was shabby, looking like a bird's nest, revealing it. What was more striking was the twin daggers she was playing with, dark red from the unwashed blood sticking to their edges. Lost? She asked, remaining where she stood, showing she was not that reckless and probably wary of any throwable weapons we may have had on us. Oh no, no. I smiled, standing firmly in my place while my soldiers were ready to fight, separating into 2 groups, one looking at the girls behind our back and one at the same party I was talking with. I was looking for you, Miss Uribisada. And why would be that, Mr. Nobleman? She asked back, but she couldn't mask the surprise in her voice. Was it because I knew her full name? Maybe. Maybe not. Because I have a business proposition. Simple. Are we looking like people who dash? She started laughing mockingly, but I cut in with a smile. I need killers and robbers. Easy. What? Is it not what you do? Maybe you are freedom fighters. Lost in the lands of your hated enemy. Should I call you terrorists instead? No, no. Urubisada raised a hand, scoffing at me. I don't care about that, so you are going in the wrong direction, boy. I was just surprised that a noble like you would say something without coating his words with honey-looking shit. Ah, I see. Well, I hate drawing things out, so here is the deal. Let's sit down and talk without resorting to any bloodshed. Too bad that I love bloodshed, and I don't trust nobles. Ha. I see. So. I shrugged, my grip tightening on the hilt of my sword. But I like your style, kid. Here is what we should do. You and me, one-on-one. No rules, just go at it, and if you survive, we'll talk. Lord. Oleg cried out, but I silenced him with a hand and walked forward. Come. Just don't regret it later. At least your balls have dropped, good. With a quick burst of speed, she had already rushed at me, wielding her 2 daggers and aiming to stab me in the groin as her first attack. I expected her to be wild, looking at her injuries, but she was as dirty as this place. When my sword met with the edge of her blade, it twisted and turned while using momentum. She changed aim to stab at my neck with her offhand weapon. When we separated, there was a slight cut on my neck, only enough to let out a thin trail of blood, not dangerous enough to be threatening. Yum. She grinned, licking her blade while looking at me. I will cut off your cock and eat it for dinner. That is no way to speak to your master. I countered, looking into her dark eyes and seeing sadistic flames dancing inside. She was not right in the head. I am my own master. She roared, attacking again while I mostly dodged, using foot techniques from my old life to keep a distance between us and let her exhaust her explosive energies. You will be my mad hound, and you will do what I say, and you will enjoy it. I continued, sidestepping, feeling her daggers pass by my chest. I will enjoy making new underwear out of your skin, bitch boy. She cried again, turning on her heels, kicking back like a horse, going for my groin again. Okay, that warrants a punishment, one that will remind you who I am. I grunted, forgoing my sword, which surprised her and the spectators. And who are you? She giggled even when I caught her ankle. I had the perfect chance to break her leg, but I needed her able for what I was planning to do. Leon, your owner. I spat at her while bringing her leg up, and without any hesitation, I punched her in the pussy. Straight on, without holding back. Who said they are not as sensitive as boys? Because she sure dropped her knives as pain coursed through her body. Of course, I was not done. Bringing her to the ground, I hurriedly brought her into a chokehold, turning her face redder than her scars. Yet she wasn't giving in. Instead of fighting back against my arms, she stretched out with her bare feet, trying to reach the dagger. So. I continued choking her, whispering into her ear like an abusive lover, here is the thing. I need a group to rob and kill other nobles I have problems with. I can't do it myself for obvious reasons, but I can let a capable group of rabid dogs do it, and even keep half of the riches. Sounds fair, doesn't it? GHMGH. FHF, GH. I couldn't tell what she was saying, but she sure spat all over my arms as I pulled her further from the dropped daggers, watching her face turn purple, but she was still struggling. What surprised me was that her people didn't attack. Was this some kind of honor thing? Weird. Stop struggling if you are in. If not, I will break your neck and find someone else to do my work. She just wouldn't stop it. By now, she was gurgling, and her eyes rolled up, yet she still tried to bite me. In the end, I choked her unconscious. When I stood over her limp body, the others were finally drawing their weapons while I stepped on their leader's neck. She is not dead. Yet. If you lower your weapons, she will survive, as I need her for a job. I shouted, looking at them unperturbed, ready to fight to the death in this shabby, empty street. Keep aiming those crossbows at us, and I will kill her, then kill all of you, too. Choose quickly. I am out of patience. Inside one of the ramshackle homes, I felt like I was back on the front lines. As if we had just occupied a village and were squatting in a destroyed home. The only thing that was missing was the dead bodies, but I did have an unconscious woman lying on the floor with me. And, to be honest, it could soon have dead bodies in it, too. Most of our men were outside, staring down the other group while in the house. Oleg was sitting next to me, looking at the, probably, second in command of the unconscious barbarian. She was examining Eurybiseda, and after making sure she was indeed alive, she said nothing, just looking at me with those dark eyes under her black bangs. All of the girls were Easterners, and it showed in their looks. I won't lie, I liked what I was seeing, but their eyes were like savages. Twisted, dark. Ugh. It was then when Eurybiseda was waking up, her moan replaced with a coughing fit, and when she finally managed to sit up and breathe, she looked at me with the eyes of a madman. Madwoman. Nah. With a beast's. Little bitch. She spat, her voice hoarse, rubbing her bruised neck. Afraid to off me, eh? I need you and your hounds. I said, looking ahead, staring into her eyes, and I am told your group is perfect for my goals. I am somebody who has a purpose, and I want to achieve it in the most optimal way. But if you continue proving difficult to deal with dash. Like you would have the balls to kill me, you spineless fuck. She giggled, and I had enough. With a nod of my head, Oleg acted without hesitating. He was faster than his bulky presence would suggest, surprising both women and me. His sword flashed and came out of its scabbard without a noise, then went through the woman's chest standing behind Eurybiseda. It was a perfectly delivered execution, impaling her heart, and with his hand on her mouth, she couldn't even scream while life left her body. Her blood spilled onto the head of Eurybiseda, but she didn't flinch. We kept looking into each other's eyes, ignoring the killing happening right next to us. Oleg gently laid down the dead woman, his sword now pointing directly at Eurybiseda, letting blood flow from its edges onto the tip of her head. If she made a noise, he would kill her without hesitation. Then my people outside would finally engage the rest of her people, and we would massacre them. It was at that point when I realized. Father's soldiers were eating beast meat, beasts that could breathe fire. I was sure it was what made them this big yet this fast. I will have to gather evidence of it. My conjecture was now almost certain, they were no longer ordinary humans. Listen. I opened my mouth, speaking calmly, as I said, I want your expertise. I am not afraid of killing you, I just don't want to go through the same hoops and loops to find someone perfect for my goals. Get it through your thick skull, or should I skullfuck you so your brain connects the dots? That sounds like a wicked death. She grinned, wiping a bit of blood off her face and tasting it. Speak, I'm listening. Finally. I sighed with an annoyed, tired voice, here is the deal. You come with your group, move to my border territory, and you will have to raid some nobles' little provinces. You can start with their trading routes that I will mark for you and keep half of the stuff you got your little bloody paws on. But the main course would be killing those nobles I send word about. Ha, and why should I do it? She laughed, licking her lips, but I saw it in her eyes, she was intrigued by the idea. You will earn a lot, and I will get what I want. Win-win. And when the Empire notices it, you will kill us all, how nice. She smirked, catching on quickly. You can survive. The others. I smiled back, lowering my voice, heads will have to be presented to the envoys, yes. No deal. Unless. Go on. I urged her, listening while Oleg kept his blade pointing at the now agitated woman who stood before me on all fours, wiggling her bottom like an actual dog. I want the power of one of the off nobles. Make me replace him. If you do that, deal. I will wag my bitch ass for you, and we will fuck up every last one of them. I will make a necklace out of their balls and pillows from their tits. I don't need either of that. I grimaced but then fell into deep thinking, which was interrupted by Oleg. You can't consider it, my lord. A rabid beast can't be trusted. Strength is everything. Eurybiseda countered, still looking at me, I want a noble's power. I know which hand to bite and which hand to lick, give me what I want, and I will lick your hand, your cock, whatever you put before me. I wouldn't trust you with that. I would be afraid of you biting it off. I snorted, hearing her remarks. Yeah, I may do that, but isn't it more exciting that way? Let's do it my way. I murmured, thinking about it, I will see how your group operates. Keep within limits and only hit the targets I select for you. Only them. Be a good bloodhound, and you may get your own doghouse. Deal. Woof. She grinned, and I felt she was someone I could barely read. When we left, I was in deep thought and ignored Oleg, who was trying to persuade me to not do this. That it was way too risky, but it was my quickest option to deal with the nobles who were sure to oppose us. She got you? Was my mother's first question, noticing the thin line on my neck. If she did, I wouldn't be here. No, it is nothing. Your father would have gone after your soul and spanked you if you lost to a mere bandit. She added in a strict voice, but I knew she was simply worried. Worry not, Mom. I can defend myself. Anyway, that woman is crazy. Probably her gang, too, they are not right in the head. And you will use them. She questioned me, and I knew this type of tone. She used it when she was testing others. There are things that can't be done honorably and must be dealt with under the table. Every empire needs forces that can be deployed and tasked with missions that will be forever forgotten. Never to see the day of light. Empire. You have big ambitions. She chuckled before pulling me into an embrace and rubbing my head. You are definitely my son, ahaha. Really? What about Dash? Your father wouldn't dare look that far. Not by himself. Okay. I chuckled, shaking my head, and was surprised by the letter she pressed into my hand. You were too busy building the city, and now, with this, you probably didn't follow what was happening back home. We enacted some new rules, and it slowly drew out the nobles who gave us pushback. Out of the 8 noble families in our region, 6 did it. Damn. I grunted, looking at the multiple pages detailing their names and their assets. That many. Vying for power is as such. They want to be the new Viscount after we are replaced. That is what they are thinking about. Tough luck. Okay, the moment my newest rapid strike force is ready, I will sick them onto one of these idiots. I hummed, putting the letter away for further study. This meeting also made me think about laying down a new governing system and laws. I will write it up while I am here and give it to you to look over it. I am still an amateur, so I need some extra input. I wouldn't call you that. She smiled gently, caressing my face. I am curious what you will come up with next. Well, she didn't need to wait for long. As I just couldn't sleep, my head filled with thoughts, and I wrote up my laws, presenting them to her in the morning. 1. The law of 2. There are only 2 ranks. The sovereign, the ruling family, and the citizens, the people living under the sovereign. The latter is not forbidden from gaining wealth and power on their own merits, but in the empire, no nobles exist besides the sovereign. 2. The law of loyalty. Loyalty to the ruling hegemony is the highest virtue. 3. The law of skill. All positions of power and influence should be filled with skilled members and masters of their crafts. 4. The law of ambition. Citizens are encouraged to be ambitious and to constantly strive to improve their own and their fellow citizens' lives. 5. The law of prosperity for all. The sovereign shall oversee and promote an economy that generates wealth and opportunities for all of its citizens. 6. The law of progressive taxation. A fair and progressive tax system shall be implemented to fund public services and welfare programs while ensuring that the wealthiest contribute proportionately more to support the less fortunate. 7. The law of workers' rights. Comprehensive labor laws will be enacted to protect workers' rights, including minimum wage standards and safe working conditions. 8. The law of accessible healthcare. Universal healthcare shall be provided to all citizens. 9. The law of education equality. A high-quality and equitable education system will be established, offering free education from kindergarten to high school level, empowering citizens with knowledge and skills. Higher education will be provided for free for those who show exceptional skills and talents. 10. The law of philanthropy. Encouraging individuals and guilds to engage in philanthropic efforts, contributing to social welfare and community development. 11. The law of fair competition. Businesses will compete in a fair and regulated marketplace, with anti-monopoly laws and consumer protections to prevent exploitation. 12. The law of innovation and entrepreneurship. Encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation by providing resources and support to individuals and businesses striving to create economic opportunities. 13. The law of empowerment. Encouraging citizens to participate in their communities, fostering a sense of ownership, and providing opportunities for civic engagement. 14. Centralized military authority. The sovereign has direct control over the military. Soldiers receive their pay and benefits from the sovereign and will remain in the sovereign's service even after leaving the armed forces, be it due to age or injuries. 15. Military loyalty. The military is expected to pledge loyalty to the sovereign and uphold the sovereign's authority. 16. National security. The sovereign can use the military to protect the nation's security and interests, ensuring stability and safety. 17. Defense and deterrence. The military's primary role should be the defense of the domain and deterrence against external threats. 18. Humanitarian military interventions. The sovereign may also employ the military for humanitarian purposes, such as disaster relief or peacekeeping missions. 19. Professionalism and training. A well-trained and professional military is essential to ensure that it serves the nation's interests. Any soldier must go through basic training and evaluation before joining the military. 20. National Defense Council. A body of advisors, military leaders, and experts who help ensure military decisions are made with absolute certitude. 21. The Law of Magical Registry. All individuals with magical abilities must register with the Royal Magical Authority, providing information about their powers and capabilities. 22. The Law of Magical Education. All witches and wizards must receive formal magical education and training under the supervision of the sovereign's magical academies. 23. The Law of Magical Military Service. Witches and wizards are considered a vital part of the kingdom's military forces and are subject to conscription when the ruler deems it necessary for the nation's defense. 24. The Law of Magical Research. Magical research and experimentation are considered top priority for any capable witches and wizards. 25. The Law of Magical Oath. All witches and wizards must swear an oath of loyalty and obedience directly to the sovereign, pledging to use their magical abilities in the service of the empire. 26. The Law of Magical Council. A council of magical advisors, including representatives from different magical schools and disciplines, assists the sovereign in making informed decisions about magical matters. 27. The Law of Magical Equal Rights. Non-magical citizens are protected from magical abuse or discrimination, and any use of magic to harm or exploit them is strictly prohibited. This is also true in reverse. No magical individual can be the target of discrimination. 28. The Law of Magical Citizenship. Witches and wizards are granted a unique status as magical citizens, allowing them certain privileges and responsibilities within the kingdom. 29. The Law of Magical Rehabilitation. Individuals who misuse their magical abilities may be subject to rehabilitation and re-education to ensure their loyalty to the sovereign and the empire's well-being. 30. The Law of Magical Inheritance. Inheritance laws may govern the transfer of knowledge and artifacts, ensuring that they remain under the control of responsible individuals. Is this all? She looked at me, blinking her eyes rapidly. Nah. This is just the first 30. I am still writing the other parts and expanding on them. This is just the rough sketch. I answered with a huge yawn, rubbing my eyes and trying to wipe away the giant bags under them. You do know that there are words in here that I do not recognize. You should start writing your own encyclopedia for your made-up stuff. She laughed, hitting my head with the papers playfully. Your brain outshone your mother's this time. Ha. Good, good. It is best if you are more like me. I will chew through this again and get back to you with some modifications. Things you mentioned here will only be possible if you build a striving empire. Son. I'll be honest with you here, I don't see you succeeding with half of this. Not to mention the crazier parts with educating the masses and paying them for their work. From where? We can barely keep our soldiers fit and ready. It will happen. I smiled confidently. It won't work from the start, of course not. But give it time, it will work, and when people get a taste of it, they will be the most loyal servants, never wanting to leave my little corner of the world. The only place where they will have these benefits. While my mother was still doing some rounds with the nobles, making deals behind my uncle's back, I was left there to entertain him, which meant I was sitting there, listening to him endlessly about his ideas and how he could change warfare forever, but they just don't get his genius ideas. Like, dressing someone up in complete plate armor, leaving only his eyes visible. Making him impervious to all damages. I was not even attempting to try and reason that the poor bastard would be unable to move at all. I was groaning heavily, feeling my head would burst at any given moment, escaping my uncle's clutches at the last minute. Damn it. Yuri should hurry the fuck up because I am on the verge of lobotomizing my uncle. Or myself. Would my mother be angry about it? Probably not, but I would surely get into trouble. I told Oleg and the rest to keep a close eye on the district and not let anyone leave it without questioning them. I also briefed them that I allowed every method they knew to use while interrogating and deciding on what to do. Either they would bow to me, or I would send them in and eradicate this gang of crazy bitches. While I was hurrying back to my room, I turned a corner in the castle, just so to run into someone, knocking our heads together and falling onto the ground. Ugh, sorry. I groaned and said the exact words that my unfortunate partner parroted at the same time. Looking at him, I saw he had a girly face, very similar to my mother's. The only difference was that he had short, dark brown hair with his green eyes. Simply by guessing, I would say he had to be between 16 and 17. And if not for the male clothes, he could have fooled me. No, it was my fault. He repeated, standing up as we looked at each other. Let's say we were both at fault. I smiled, patting myself down. My name is Leon, you are? Elliot. He bowed a little. So you are my sister's son. Ah. That is why you look like my mom, huh? Thank you. He smiled serenely, taking it as a compliment. Shit, he needs longer hair, and that smile would be like a charming young lady's. I am a man. He exclaimed, speaking out of nowhere, making me flinch and shudder. Was my gaze that oblivious? Yes. I just couldn't find anything else to say. I am a man. I am used to the looks you just gave me, ha. And no, I am not into boys, and no, I am not young, I am already 26. That is still not old. I mumbled, now feeling awkward. But, he was more approachable than my uncle, that is for sure. Thank you again, Leon. It is good to meet you. He stretched out his hand, and I grabbed it quickly. That was when we both heard my other uncle waddling towards us from the corridor I had just come from. Shit, the warthog is out of the pigsty. Come. Without a question, he pulled me along, and after a few hurried steps, I ended up in the castle's library. Here we should be good, he rarely comes here anyway. Thanks. I think I heard enough of the abysmal battle scenarios that he plays out in his head. He only wins them because he thinks for the enemy, too. I moaned, still tasting the greasy, sweaty aura that he was surrounded with. I think I hurled a little then and there. Ahaha. True. Elliot laughed with me, patting my back, and led me to one of the tables. I was about to go back to my room to nap a little, but oh well, that can wait. Wine. Thanks. I nodded, seeing that there were still snacks and wine lying around with multiple open books. Studying. You could say that, he nodded, giving me a cup. You see, even though my elder brother is the one who has the last say in things, he is only interested in those that fill up his personal coffers. I am left with dealing with the mundane part. How mundane? I questioned, honestly curious about his part in the family. All the rest. The boring, economic part. I heard you visited the gang of those crazy ones. Weigh in it. I stopped him, looked into my cup, and then glanced back at him. This guy was dangerous. Was he not just like my mom in appearance, but in mind too? It's fine. Elliot grinned, taking it from me, sipping up a little bit of wine before giving it back as he licked his lips, making me shiver. Ahaha. Sorry. Just so you know, I am also not into men. I already have a girl. Good. You should. He nodded agreeingly. I, too, have 3 maids I sleep with. Pfft. What? Not to your liking? He asked with a half-grin lingering on his face, and now I knew he was playing with me, damn you. You baby-faced bastard. Shit. I think I like this guy. It's much better uncle material than the pig. Okay, you got me. Was our meeting a coincidence at all? I grunted, wiping my nose from wine. That it was. Although I was going to look for you sooner or later. It is about your plans. Plans? I stiffened. Did my mother leak it? No. No way. It is my deduction so far, but I guess you will use them to be your hidden weapons against a rival noble, yes. You could say that. I murmured, looking at him without blinking, slowly sipping my wine. What if I help you out? Mother did mention she had a younger brother she would like more to sit where her older brother does right now. Was her hand in this? Or was this some kind of dirty play between nobles I read about so much? He didn't press on after his question, letting me think. Whenever I looked into his eyes, he never looked away and just smiled amicably at me. Was this a trap? My instincts told me it wasn't, and I trusted my gut. Then, this uncle of mine was someone with ambition and someone who was ready to jump into the fray to grab power for himself, but how far would he be willing to go? Why? I asked a simple yet complex question, and now it was my turn to wait. I watched him refill his cup and taste the wine before he leaned back in his chair and answered me. Because I tolerated them here for the same reason. I was using them to slowly gain more and more power over the city guards. You see, I am planning let's say, a hostile takeover against my eldest brother. He is unreliable, unfit, literally mind you, and worst of all, going completely senile. If he remains leading my home, he will drive it into ruins. I was totally floored by what I was hearing. For one, he was speaking so candidly and openly that I was at a loss for words. Then, there were the phrases he was using. What the hell? Surprised? He asked with a slight chuckle. Yeah. A bit. So. I spat into your soup. Kinda. But I can adapt. I already did and came up with a new idea. Care to listen? Please. I'm all ears. It was better to have an ally who is competent than one who is a pig, so let's see what he has to offer. Here is the deal, whatever you are planning will sooner or later drag the Empire's eyes onto our little corner. Now, we don't want that to happen without providing any solution right after. Any sign of destability here would make them dispatch the military and replace us with new puppets. The thing is, they don't really care who sits here, as long as their back is protected and we pay our tithe every year. They have time for that. Or the manpower? I asked, genuinely curious about their resources. Of course. Anyway, what I am saying is that we will work together. I already had much evidence planted within those animals to lead back to my good old brother. What makes you think he would take the fall? He would have no say in it. Elliot continued, the evidence I would provide to the Empire's agents would be enough. If you are backing me with it, then it would be done even more quickly. They would take him away, make me the new Baron, and everyone would live happily ever after. Are you a fox in a man's skin? I asked, but he just laughed at it, not answering. What if they decide you or we are too much of a hassle and decide to kill us all? The Empire is pragmatic. Putting me into power is much easier than raising a completely new family. Yes. That could happen. But the chances are slim. But not zero. Risk is with us in every facet of life. I could have run into you while you held a knife, and bam, you just stabbed me to death. What a specific example. I shrugged, shaking my head while Elliot continued smiling, looking at me. It was how the 17th Empress was murdered, and her cousin took over the Empire. So, it is not as far-fetched as you would think. Huh. I see. You are ambitious, huh? Not overly so. With a yawn, he stretched, looking so relaxed that I couldn't help but yawn myself. I know my boundaries. I just want this region, and it will benefit you too. We work well together, and I really love my sister. We could trade more openly and profitably, and I have some friends in other regions. I could open up more trade routes than my brother. Case in point, the pig is looked at warily and hated by many because he is too shrewd of a businessman. Always squeezing out as much profit as possible. I am much more mellow, much more easier to work with. Well, you are selling yourself expertly. You can think about dash. No. I shook my head, standing up and patting myself down. I am already determined to go through with my plans, and if you are lending me a helping hand, I will take it. I am doing something essential, and any aid is appreciated. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Ahaha. Good to hear it. He jumped up, stretching his hand out, which I grabbed as we shook on it. If you want, you can scratch my back in the bathhouse. Thanks, but no thanks. Joke. It was a joke. He added with a wide grin, but I somehow was not sure of it. Or, shit, this guy is insanely good at confusing someone. I will go and speak with Louise and tell her everything. Then, we can sit down and work out the details. Sounds good. I am still waiting on the bandit's answer anyway. It is better than listening to the pig one more time, how we should tie 4 crossbows together to make a repeater. Yeah, and you didn't even hear about his idea of giving wings to knights who would jump down from the walls, gliding above the battlefield and throwing javelins. Leaving the room of Elliot was weird. I mean, I felt weird. The guy was weird. Shit, my family is weird, as I think about it. Arg. Whatever. If my mother says he would be a better ruler, I will trust her on it. His ideas did sound nice. If he really has connections to people and I could import critical resources through him, that would be perfect. Plus, if I invent, let's be honest, if I steal and implement some ideas from my previous life, I could sell them through him. Make him the inventor of it publicly. I was beginning to like the idea more and more. Lord. It was Oleg who waited for me in my room, saluting at once, presenting me a letter. He was wise to say nothing as there could be spies here. I read a lot about ancient castles having secret passages and hiding holes between walls, although that pig couldn't fit into them, that is for sure. Good job. I nodded as the letter was a clear report that the crazies had agreed to my terms and listed everything they wanted. Including a base from where they can operate and ambush their targets, and have it as soon as possible. Here. What I gave him was a prepared order that he opened and read through twice before eating it. I looked at him strangely, and then I couldn't help but nod towards the fireplace, making him smile sheepishly. My instructions were clear, he was to remain here with the rest as a connection and oversee their preparations. Only return by escorting them over and keeping an eye on the group at all times. I will return home and repurpose the old logging site where Sasha lived previously. I am going to lay down some magic formations hidden from them, and if they ever rebel, a firestorm will welcome them one night, burning them to a crisp. It was a relief when we began heading home with my mother. I finally didn't have to listen to my uncle and could relax my mind. I heard everything went smoothly. You could say that. We will see later. I met with Dash. I don't need to know about it. But, Mom. It is best if you do it your way. Don't make me worry with the gory details, Oh, okay. I nodded with a small smile, rubbing the ridge of my nose. Don't worry, it will go without a hitch. On the way back, she didn't ask about it anymore, and I took it as her confidence in my abilities. On the other hand, the one who asked a ton of questions was none other than Sasha, jumping on me the moment I appeared. I am also happy to see you again. I grinned after a kiss and held her by her bottom, and I could tell she was excited as she didn't reprimand me even when others were watching. I will tell you about it slowly at dinner, HM. Instead, it's your turn. Tell me, how things are. Did I miss something big? Yes. Please say it isn't some accident. It isn't. She giggled, holding my arm happily. We finished the school building, and you won't guess who is teaching the people how to read and write. Merlin. How did you know? She yelled, surprised as she wanted to surprise me with the strange news. Sixth sense. The kid is weird, and he was also teaching people back at the mines. I am not surprised he got a knack for it, my surprise is more because the people listen to him. Well, he is funny as he can only reach the, what its name? Blackboard. Yes, that. So he can only reach it while standing on boxes, but you know. I get why no adult is complaining about it or mocking him. I'm all ears because it is still a mystery to me. How would you feel if a small kid who is yet to get Harry can read and write better than you? Okay. Point taken. I answered by twitching my mouth, but then again. I was in an excellent mood, seeing how well my city was coming along. Magic speeded up things way more than modern technology. With my new inventions, blocks that should weigh as much as a modern-day car were lifted up like they were nothing and put in place effortlessly. It was like building a city from Lego sets. It meant I didn't need to focus on it any longer, and people could take care of it by themselves. Good. What is it? Sasha asked, noticing my smile and snuggling up to me. I am just happy. Seeing how all is coming together, I can focus on different things. You will come with me tomorrow as I am going to try to set up my very first smithy. You mentioned it before, so I was taking some liberties. She said proudly, her eyes sparkling. We finished the building. You did. Now, I was really shocked. She did it all by herself. Perfect. I couldn't help but hold her close and kiss her deeply. You are full of surprises. I am loving you more and more. Aw. Leon. She moaned, turning bashful but wiggling her butt happily. You spoke about it multiple times, and you had some drawings, so. I talked with Merlin, and he had some ideas, too. After that, I made sure everything was compatible with your sketches, and we built it. So. I didn't do anything out of order, yes. No, you didn't. I was hoping for this, my people making their own decisions. Perfect. More than perfect. Let's go, show me. Not far from the palace, in a street where multiple, for now empty houses stood, I arrived at a completed blacksmith's workshop. Of course, it wasn't furnished, only the building was ready, along with the kilns and the forge. Everything else needed to be put in place. There were still many things I had to get and install before I could call it prepared to start operating. But that didn't matter. Good job, Sasha, this is perfect. It is still bare bones. She murmured, yet beaming with happiness. It's enough. Most of the completed houses, along with our palace, are pretty empty, but not for long. I got ourselves some dogs to send out and hunt, so when they start doing their job, we will start building up our treasury. And we will buy resources and furniture from what they get their hands on. She asked me, trying to put it together, and she was correct. Mostly. Partially, yes. The gold will go towards that. But I am guessing we will have many items I do not need, like jewelry. It isn't very helpful to me right now, so those gold and silver knickknacks are going to be melted down right here. Along with the scrap metals. I will have to create molds to reforge the tools we need, but that shouldn't be hard. The furniture part will be easy. You see, the fountain competition also helped show me who are those who have a good hand. I will recruit them to start making wood furniture pieces and help them set up their first businesses. But now, let's focus on this forge. I will have to make it ready for a formation. I already put a formation of fire in the main forge. I hope it works. She added after hearing that, and I immediately looked over. More than that, I climbed into it. Hiya. Leon. What if it turns on? She held onto my leg that was sticking out and pulled at it with all her might. I would worry about that if Merlin was here, but with you. Nah, I'm safe. I laughed while checking it and crawling back out after a few minutes. Nice. Superb work. Let's test it. I grinned, throwing my boots into it as fuel. When Sasha circulated her mana, it immediately came to life, and the fire burning inside was more intense than I anticipated. Whoa. I was forced to take multiple steps back, shielding my face from the heat. Turn it off. Quickly. I shouted as I still felt the heat rise, and only she was unbothered by it. Why yes. It took her more effort to halt its workings than to start the fire. But after a few seconds, she managed to cancel it out. Luckily, by now, Sasha's control over fire and her mana was way better. Did I do it wrong? What happened? She asked nervously, looking at me, seeing if I had any injury. I have a theory. I muttered, watching the glowing insides of the forge, the formation still flashing with a bright red color. You remember what I taught you, yes? About how the mages use a conduit for their spells. Yes. Would it be able to control the heat? Here are my current thoughts. Mind you, I could be wrong. The formations I put down are relatively weak when activated because I am magicless. I copy the laws of nature but do not have any genuine effect on them. They work at their minimum capability. A fire formation put down by you, just look at how hot it was burning. I think it would easily melt tungsten. It was like fire straight out of hell. Awesome. What is that? Tungsten, I mean. Not important now, a type of metal. But this is a small problem we will have to deal with. No human could work in here if the forge is on with this kind of fire. So I did mess up. No, you didn't. This just shows that we are missing a crucial ingredient. This showed me that if I was the one to place down the formation, it would not be strong enough for what I needed it for. Yours is way better, but it is untamed. We need something that helps you focus your powers. I bet if we have those focusing crystals or whatever they are called, you could lay down formations that you could easily manipulate. So, in short, I will have to get my hands on some. Where could we find any? We can't just walk up to the Empire or the Church to ask for it. No, we can't, but I know a group of crazies who can steal some for us. Ahaha. Come. I will need you to lay down some similar formations, all hidden from untrained eyes. But if they will make this kind of fire. It is exactly the kind of fire I want. I do not trust them, so they will become ash if they rebel. Sasha, my dear, this uncontrollable hellfire is what I need against the dangers of this world. I grinned, hugging her close and sharing a kiss that she returned with much more passion than I anticipated. The old campsite where Sasha and the rest lived got cleaned up, but not overly so, as I didn't want to waste too much time with them. With a few hastily built cabins, I deemed it good enough, especially because their floorboards were all decorated by Sasha, drawing up a fire formation on their underside. If they ever rebel or reinforce their little camp, it would mean nothing. You are inviting, no, you are hugging danger, you know that. She asked me, sounding worried. I am completely aware of it. But do you know why I'm not worried? Because you are stupid. She countered quickly, pouting. Maybe. But mostly because even if they go rogue, I am not really afraid of them. My father and the army that defends the opening within the mountains are way more potent than their little bandit group. If all comes to worse, we will wipe them out and ask the Empire for resources to rebuild our forces so it won't affect our job in defending the region. I don't know how the Empire works. I just hope you are right. Me neither. I shrugged with a grin, but I know how powers like this operate. Throughout history, many empires like this had different people delegated to lead the regions while their main forces concentrated on expanding their territories or pleasing their emperor's immediate needs. They didn't bother with anything else as long as a region remained stable and worked efficiently. Of course, later on, this led to the rise of strong warlords and sovereigns who no longer obeyed their emperor as they became stronger than them. I trailed off with a smile, not really explaining further. I don't know if this place had anything happen that was similar, but if not, then, soon, they will have a precedent of it. I hope you are right. Let's focus on our immediate plans, okay? I chuckled, looking at the future camp for the bandits. Their move was more peaceful than I anticipated. When Oleg's message arrived a week later, I went for a visit, bringing Sasha along. I was surprised that their camp was filled with about 50 bandit warriors, all women, while they brought around another 50 males. Were those enslaved people? It was hard to tell, but they were acting weird and subservient to the women present, groveling before them from what I could see. What's this? I asked while Eurybiseda walked forward, grinning at me savagely. Jealous, pretty boy. Humph. Sasha snorted, momentarily drawing Yuri's eyes onto herself before I interrupted the bandit leader's thoughts. Nope. I'm just not going to feed your pets. Don't worry, we feed them well, and we will rob enough food for us, bwahaha. So, when do we start? Tomorrow, I answered firmly and gave her a letter. Read it, memorize it, then burn it. What if I don't? She smirked, and without me having to say anything, Sasha flared up in a way that I never saw before, but it was hot. Literally. Then I will burn your people. Her breath was searing the air, surprising Yuri, and I was a bit afraid that the formations may combust right now and right there. Wait a minute. Yuri whispered, furrowing her brows, looking into Sasha's eyes, who maintained eye contact, not wanting to back down. I was looking at them with great interest because how Sasha acted confirmed my suspicion. It seemed that the nature of their elements influenced the wizards and witches more than I first assumed. While Sasha could quickly get angry, changing her mood just as fire changes direction depending on the wind, she could also be mellow and warm, beautiful like a fireplace on a cold winter night. You are a witch. Yuri exclaimed, making Oleg and the other soldiers draw their blades, ready to jump on them and protect us. So? I laughed, raising a hand to stop them. Is that a problem? No. She murmured, biting her lips, drilling her eyes into Sasha's, who withstood it with such pride that I wanted to make her mine right there. I am more than a witch. She sneered at Yuri, grabbing my hand and pulling me close, and I could feel her body's heat that made me think she had a dangerously high fever. I am his wife. Now all things are clear. Yuri whispered, turning towards me, I want to change our deal. Fuck you. That was my immediate and straightforward answer. One she should understand. You can fuck me if you want. She nodded, or I fuck you if you are into it. We do have some things that can be put on, pretty boy. I will burn you. Sasha said through gritted teeth, holding my hand even more firmly. Whatever. Yuri waved her hand, ignoring her and watching me solely. You are planning a fucking rebellion. Now I am 100% sure. You are not just power hungry, you will stick it to the Empire. Or you want me to dash? Fuck if I care about the conquered lands. Don't bring that up. She interrupted me immediately. I asked you to make me into a noble because I want power. Fuck that. Make me your bitch. It was not just me who said that. Sasha and even Oleg joined in our little exclamation of surprise. Being a noble is nice, but if you are planning to create your own empire. I want to be on the top. Make me into your concubine, then. I can ride you like no other girl. Fuck, if you want, you can stick it into me anytime, anywhere, I don't care if others are watching. Fuck me in the public square, who cares? But I want in on the big ones. Sit on those massive balls. She said, heaving heavily, wanting to grab me by the crotch, but I drew my sword, holding it against her neck. This is fine too, you can be rough with me, my prince. You are out of your mind. I whispered, what about your followers? Every queen can have their own little guarding force, no. As if. Sasha shouted at her, but Urubisada didn't even flinch and just kept looking at me. Think, baby. I will be your rabid little bitch, and I will go and kill anyone you want. No questions asked. In turn, you make me into one of yours, and I can enjoy a life of utter luxury and power. Sweet deal if you ask me. You are not running ahead of yourself, Yuri. I whispered but slowly drew back my blade, you are flying. I won't promise it. Not when I am not even ready for a breakaway. I am willing to risk it. She grinned even wilder when I acknowledged her guess. You brought us here because you need a dirty little whore for your dirty little plays. Every emperor has a hand that is covered in shit. She heaved as she grabbed my arm and started licking and sucking on my fingers, shocking Sasha. I could tell that she was fuming like a chimney but held her tongue, unlike Yuri. I don't mind. I will lick it off. Listen closely. I shrugged, grabbing her tongue and pulling on it. Keep to the original deal and plans. If everything works out fine, we will sit down and talk about the future. I won't promise anything now. I am not someone who builds on a foundation held up by empty pledges. Prove yourself that I need you so bad that I risk putting anything of mine into your holes. Capice? I knew she didn't know what that last word meant, but she still nodded, moaning before I let go of her tongue. Perfectly. With a moan, she read the orders I gave her and then tore it up and ate it before blowing a kiss towards me and hurrying back to her people. She is like you, I mumbled, seeing her eating it, but Oleg was not getting my reference. No way I would tolerate her in our home. Sasha cried out after we were leaving, pulling on my clothes, that is a complete maniac. You can't trust her. Her head needs to be on a pike and not between your lap. Whoa, whoa. I laughed, trying to calm Sasha down. Easy there, my love. I haven't promised anything to her yet. We don't even know if she survives it. On one part, that crazy bitch does make sense. I will need a group that could be used for black ops, I mean, murky, nasty operations. We are loyal, my lord, we can also dash. Oleg started, but I shot him down. I don't want to use you for things that would trouble your consciousness. You are a good man. You are my first general. My lord. Enough. I dislike heavy topics, so don't bother with it. For now, I will take it as if everything is going on as planned, and I will deal with the crazies when all is settled and we are seeing the results. What I didn't mention to them was that an old saying popped up in my head while leaving. Never put it in crazy. But, oh well. I will let fate play itself out and stop worrying. Only 2 days later, it was Oleg who came up to me with hurried steps while I was directing my people to install the first fountain with the winner's work. It was something genuinely artistic, a collection of statues that made me question whether he was indeed an amateur. Where the primary pipes were, stone trees were being erected, 3 in total. The water would push through at their tops, while different figures would enjoy the water under their shade. There were sculptures of beautiful women, a group of half-naked warriors, and a handful of children at the last one. It reminded me of something out of a Roman-era fountain, straight out of a history book. I was already thinking about appointing the man as my chief architect. My lord. Oleg interrupted me, and seeing his eyes, I knew it was important. What is it? I asked, walking away with him, and when nobody was near to earshot, he laid it out plainly. The crazy bitches completed the first raid. They left no survivors, it was a complete massacre. I expected as much. Refugees are coming down from the northern villages, afraid of the news of the slaughter. Divert them here. I need their workforce anyway. What else? We are already collecting them. The thing is, the woman sent a messenger directly to me. She says they looted something. Well. Unique. Did she say what? No, the message only stated that Lady Sasha would love it. That daughter of a bitch. I cursed, surprising Oleg, who waited for me to explain. She either got her hands on some magic books, or the crystals I was looking for all this time. Gather the men. I am going to see them. Now. Yes, my lord. Before going, I grabbed Sasha, telling her to be ready because it could be that she would have to activate the formations under their base way sooner than I anticipated. But I really hoped that wouldn't be the case. It would be such a waste of time and resources. After we arrived, some female bandits waited for us, escorting the group into their home, which was now littered with hundreds of boxes as they went over their fresh loot. Surprisingly, they were well organized, and I could see a pile of parcels, untouched, separated from the rest. Yo, laughed Yuri, coming to greet us. She was still covered with patches of dried, blackish blood. We already separated some for you to take away, you will love them, my dear hubby. I am not your hubby. And don't call me dear, it makes me retch. Sure, baby, sure. She grinned, ignoring me, glancing at Sasha, but she was now playing her game differently, disregarding Yuri as if she wasn't even there. Come, let me show it to you. I was sure she did not say come. I could swear, but I was not here to argue about it. When we walked over with my guards and saw what was inside the crates, I wanted to swear. I was sure of it as Sasha's brows were constantly furrowing, relaxing, and then contracting again, giving her a pretty funny appearance. Where did you get these? I asked in a firm voice, leaning forward and picking out one small block from the box. They were all like an oversized plum seed. The smallest was comparable to a mobile phone in my old world, while the biggest was comparable to a coffee table. To the touch, they felt like rough, unpolished stone and were milky white in color. The noble we killed and ransacked had it. They were sitting in the basement of his little courtyard without any marks, so they are not the church's property. Well, they could have been once, but who cares? Have you ever robbed them? I asked, weighing the strange stones that, even though their sizes varied, none felt heavier than a kilogram. The church? Yuri asked, tilting her head, a few times, yes. They are nothing special and are just another arm of the state. They are responsible for searching for mages and collecting resources for them. Preaching is just secondary. Why? Are you afraid of them? She grinned widely, thinking she had something on me now. No, I just want to deal with them later. I already have plans to kill them silently and replace them with my own people so they can send back reports that all is well here. Sneaky. I am getting wet. Want to fuck? No, I answered before Sasha could because the moment she opened her mouth, I felt the stone in my hand turning hot and becoming slightly more orange-colored. And we will take these. Now. Heh, I knew you would love this gift. I do, and delegate a few of your bitches to keep an eye on the looted region. I want to know where these came from. You do know how to talk to a woman, eh? Yuri moaned, licking her mouth, then performed an exaggerated noble's bow. We will do so. With Sasha, we coordinated the others to carry the boxes out, and soon, a carriage arrived to pick them up. I brought them to the scene of the old mine where we could test them out without worrying about destroying something, especially after it was flooded. Oleg, send some trustworthy soldiers to the city. I want them to observe the church and their people at every passing minute, I said as we were traveling, and I was immersed in my thoughts for a little while. Yes, my lord. He nodded, riding further up, speaking with two of his men who sped away, heading towards my budding city. Leon. I smiled, looking at Sasha, who was still squirming a little. These stones are weird. I feel a slight vibration in my body whenever I look at them. Is it uncomfortable? No, it's nice, that is the problem, It tingles, me, you know. Oh. I blinked my eyes and barely held back my laughter, making her pout. Not funny. It is, uncomfortable. They are just rocks. Why are they like this? Well, they are not just stones, but I get you. I am sure they have a ton of official names, but I will start calling them, CC. CC. Why? Control crystals. In short, CC. A good and short designation that is easy to remember, and I will appoint them as a resource that nobody but I can deal with. You say it makes you tingle. We don't know what other effects they may have, and what if they are problematic for a mage? Could they be addictive? I wouldn't be addicted to them, Of course not. I hugged her closer, giving her a deep kiss. I would make sure that toys like this wouldn't satisfy you. But this can be dangerous. So I will monopolize them just as I monopolized you. Bad, you are bad. I know. While sending most of the loot to my city, I took one box with us to the flooded mine. After choosing one that was easy to hold, I gave it to Sasha, telling her to try and focus on it and see what happens. I had no idea how to operate something like this, but live practice is the easiest way to go about it. It tingles, makes my fingers numb. She explained as she looked at it, trying to concentrate her mana on it. From here, it seems to turn more orange the more you focus. I shouted back, standing a few meters away at the behest of Oleg, who held my shoulders with one hand. It is warming up nicely. It is good to hold. But it seemingly plateaued. I murmured, and then an idea came to mind. Think of Yuri flirting with me. It had an immediate effect, and the crystal turned bright red in just a few seconds. I saw a glowing, crimson magic formation appear behind Sasha, who then shifted towards me, oblivious to what was happening to her. Like I would let it happen. That woman is a beast in human clothing. She snorted, but that seemed like enough of an activation for the new formation. I felt a firm grip pulling at me as Oleg flung me away before dodging himself, and a fireball whizzed past us, hitting a tree, making it explode as if a cannonball shot through it. I watched from the ground as flames erupted, consuming the tree and leaving only ash behind before starting to spread. Oh shit. Not good. Sasha, try thinking about recalling it. How? She yelled, panicking at what she did as it quickly turned into a spreading forest fire. Just think about slurping it up like some soup. I don't know, you are the witch. Well. I didn't expect it to work, but it did. Like trained dogs listening to their owner's whistle, the flames returned to her, now swirling around Sasha's body like a whirlpool. It was interesting to see fire act like this, but I couldn't get close as the heat was still continuing to rise higher and higher. How is it now? I shouted, raising my arm, feeling it hard to breathe because of the heat waves. Fine. She yelled back, it is like taking a hot bath on a cold night. It feels so satisfying. I bet. The formation in the air behind her was glowing intensely, and I could see the multiple intricate signs inside slowly turn, realigning themselves as her thoughts changed. I was so glad for my brain to still have its functions from my previous life as now I could record them and look back later on while resting. I felt like I was taking a glimpse at how this world's laws were working in real time. Think of calming down. Try turning it off. It was hard to shout, feeling as if I was breathing right next to a blacksmith's oven, burning my lungs. I was glad that it was Sasha who I was working with, as even though she was a bit panicky, she was surprisingly adept when it came to learning and handling magic. She was a natural, but maybe all witches were. I watched as the flames began cooling down, retreating and dissipating, leaving behind a completely scorched area around her. My lord. Now I understand why they are whisked away and used sparingly. That fire was like flames from the underworld. Unleashing that on an enemy would be more deadly than a well-equipped army. Didn't you get used to it fighting beasts that breathe fire in the winter? I asked, looking at Oleg with raised eyebrows. The monster's flames don't feel this hot, my lord. You may be right. I whispered, finally being able to approach Sasha and realizing a problem. She was naked. Okay, it was not a problem, but a bonus. KHM. Oleg had already turned away, not looking, and it was what prompted her to cry out. My clothes. They are gone. Duh. I grinned, exploring her curves to my heart's content. You have grown. Seeing you now in natural sunlight, I must say, a good diet is all a girl needs. You. I can't go back like this. She continued shrieking, trying to cover herself, but didn't know where to put her tiny hands. Why not? You are perfect. With a grin, I couldn't help but start tickling her as she protested and laughed at the same time, hugging me. I will crawl under your clothes then. Sure. But enough playing. I whispered, kissing her and giving her my clothes as I didn't mind heading back in nothing but my underwear. What you did here was eye-opening. Was it? Of course. I whispered, taking the completely intact CC from her hands. No wonder this is important for mages. In a battle, it can significantly enhance and focus your spells. Didn't you notice how much easier it was to control the flames? Still, it has a wind-up and cool-down time. It wasn't instant, What are you thinking about? She asked, looking curiously at my face, holding a sweet smile that made my heart melt more than her fires. Just some fancy idea. Something unreasonable. Like, and don't laugh. What if I can store mana in them? What if I can program them somehow and activate their effects at specific times or in different conditions? Could then they be used by even someone like me? Or more importantly, could I make them to be the energy source of some particular machines? Back home, the construction was still going on, entering the phase when people were building the outer city where most future residents would find a home for themselves. These houses were less spacious and not meant for those who had been there since the first day. Still, they were leagues better than what most people were used to, and the moment they were finished, we could begin erecting the first wall around the city. That will be an actual undertaking. As groups were emerging, with enough experience to take over in delegating the work and showing the newcomers how it was done, I was free to start studying my newest resource. My first problem showed itself when we were still returning with Sasha, and I tried breaking one of them apart. It just didn't work. Even if I beat it against a slab of stone, it remained whole, without scratches or dents. Then I tried cutting it. Nothing. Smashing with a hammer. No results. I threw it into a kiln. Of course, it withstood it without a problem. It didn't even get hot. Is this the most resilient piece of ore in the world, or what? Well, this is a problem. I shrugged, visiting Sasha, who was in the middle of designing the interior of the palace, and she was wholly immersed in how it should look, working on it with none other than little Merlin. What problem? They asked, turning towards me. I am running out of ideas on what to do with these CCs and how to split them apart. How are they mined? Merlin asked, quickly narrowing it down to the question also floating within my head. It is a good question. I shrugged, rubbing his head, but I can't really go to the Empire, ask them, hey so, these strategic resources that only you can access, so, how are they mined? Why? Oh, I'm just curious, that's all. I see. He nodded, thinking, you are right, my lord. And magic won't be of use as they react to it then, HM. Why not hit one with another? Fuck. I stopped as I exclaimed, wanting to hit myself instead, that's it. Leon. Not before the child. Sasha grumbled, but Merlin just looked up at her with an innocent smile. I heard worse. I know that coarse people use it to express intense feelings when they can't do it otherwise. You little shit. I grinned, pulling on his face, stretching it, are you Callan, ya daddy here uncultured? No, my lord. He giggled, answering without complaining. TSK. You win this round, kiddo. I don't know why I never thought about that, it is evident in hindsight. I started out small, beating two at each other, and the moment the impact happened, both shattered into a dozen pieces. Okay, so this needs to be refined, or I will destroy my stash. For the second try, I picked out basically the same sized CCs, and this time, I put one on a table and hit it with the second one. Success! I exclaimed when only one was smashed apart like a glass. How quaint! I couldn't help but wonder about the properties of CC. What happened right now partially ignored a fundamental natural law in my previous life, so I had to develop some tools to help me study it. This led me down a road that kickstarted some extra development I didn't expect. First, I needed a universal weight system as I couldn't go on with my feelings alone. I could have used what was present in the Empire's books, but they were using past Emperor's body parts as a base. Screw that. So, how did I decide about what was a kilogram? Easy. Thanks to my memory, I could quickly determine how long a meter, centimeter, etc. was, and I had already used it while building the city. It was normal for me to draw the plans with those included, and Merlin had already taught it to the masses. The little genius didn't even question it, accepting it at face value and deriving the rules of the decimal system, correctly guessing all the exchanges. I was still somewhat doubtful he was not a reincarnated person. Oh well. Less work for me. Going by the same method, I grabbed a bucket and drew the scales on it after recalling a simple image within my brain box. When it was done, I filled it up with water, and there. 1 liter of water equals 1 kilogram. Of course, I knew it would be off because of the weight of the bucket, but, oh well, I am creating it now. In this world, 1 kilogram will be this from now on, and if one of my old teachers pops up here, he can suck it. Now, it was time to make my weights, and as they were nothing but lumps of iron, it was easy to make. The best thing to train my future blacksmiths on. I quickly gathered individuals who either showed interest or even had some background in making horseshoes, fixing tools, and the like. After reworking Sasha's formation inside the blacksmith's workshop, it was burning with less intensity, making it bearable for us, mere mortals, to exist. For what I needed now, this was enough. I began introducing them to my new invention as I was explaining it. It was less challenging than I expected, and I saw Merlin lingering close by, watching intently, nodding his little head occasionally. After a few tries, the first, ideally 1 kilogram plates, were made. I left a set for them to replicate and gave them my first scale to measure the completed pieces. I was glad to see that Merlin jumped at the occasion that there was something new to learn and teach, and by the time I left, he was explaining to the others again why it was crucial to develop a new, unified system. Now, where was I? I murmured, snapping my fingers as I remembered. Yes, I wanted to weigh the CC fragments. After a week's worth of detour, I was back at my initial experiment, putting them on my new scale with the correct weights, and there it was. No matter what I did, they all had the same weight, 1.5 kilograms. The one that was as big as a ring. 1.5, the one that was the size of a head. 1.5. Magic. I murmured as it was inconceivable yet real. Even if I broke one apart, the two new sides were identical. 1.5. The other weird thing was that when breaking them up, the stationary was the one that always broke apart when hitting them against each other. Even if I smashed a smaller CC against a much bigger one. Was this a perfectly elastic collision? Where did the kinetic energy go? What the hell was happening? I didn't know. What I did know was that they acted like nothing I had knowledge about. I was never a scientist, only an engineer, so it baffled me, but it was not enough to make me stuck. So what if their weight remained the same? What if they don't indeed follow the laws of energy transfer? These were fucking magic crystals. Hee hee. After developing a more sophisticated version of breaking them apart, I could start determining their efficiency. Are the big ones better? Or could the smaller ones do the same? That experiment happened once again at the abandoned mine. Oleg made sure to surround the area with his men, keeping everyone from coming close to sabotage us while doing the tests. I brought Merlin along this time, and he was so excited I barely recognized him. I had never seen him chatting and babbling so rapidly, asking 100 questions about CC and magic, to which I had no real answers. Merlin, we are here to explore what they can do. So, if you want answers, you must also start experimenting with them. Okay. Yes, my lord. He nodded while jumping up and down in place, saluting towards me. Calm down for now. This can be dangerous. Last time, Sasha shot a fireball at me. It was an accident. She shouted back, hearing me despite being almost 100 meters away. Understood. He grinned, hiding behind me. You little, hey. Okay. I shrugged, waving at Sasha, do it. She was standing with a lump of CC in hand, almost as big as Merlin's little head. After focusing her thoughts and mana, a formation appeared right behind her once again before a fireball flew out, hitting the water in the flooded quarry this time. Whoa! Both of us exclaimed as Merlin's eyes were shining brightly. Of course, Sasha was not finished, as she was switching to a smaller piece about the size of an almond. The fireball came out once again, but as I had expected, it was weaker. Noticeably weaker. It broke. Shouted Sasha, and after turning off her magic, she rushed to us, showing the tiny CC continuing to crumble until it turned to dust. So there is a size that makes them into a one-use item. I nodded, maybe the big ones are also eroding. Would using them multiple times end in them breaking apart? This will have to be tested. I will do it. Merlin yelled, and I couldn't help but laugh. You just want to play with them, no? Yes. Honest boy. I grinned, ruffling his hair and nodding. Leon, is this? You know. Sasha murmured, feeling shy, but he may be too young to feel that way when holding it. So far, he didn't mention anything weird when standing close to CC. Ah. Well. Right until Sasha gave him the big one. The moment it landed in his hands, he dropped it, falling to his knees, his face turning bright red, and it was the first time I saw him close to crying. I peed. He sniffled, looking up at us, panic-stricken. He's yours. I shrugged, and to my surprise, Sasha, like a good mother, quickly ensured Merlin was cleaned up and changed without any awkwardness. On the second try, he was now much more collected, expecting something strange, and with a serious face, he resisted, nodding his little head. I withstood it. You are both meanies. You didn't tell me about it makes you pee. Air. Holding my laugh, I chortled, unable to fully keep it under wraps. We thought it would not affect you as you are still too young. Now I should do magic stuff, yes? He asked, quickly forgiving us as he was keen on learning something new and exciting. Yes and dash, but it was too late. A massive, blue formation appeared right under our feet, spinning way faster than Sasha's. Look at that. I murmured, memorizing the symbols as fast as I could. Leon. Cried Sasha, and I watched her panic as a red formation materialized behind her, responding not to her mana but resonating directly with Merlin's. A new fireball was forming in the hand of Sasha as she began sweating and breathing heavily. I could not feel any heat coming from it, which just made it more dangerous. Lord. I heard Oleg's shout, already rushing in, but that would be useless anyway. Aim towards the sky. I said, holding Sasha, helping her aim. When Merlin managed to snap back to reality, he quickly began reining in his powers, trying to turn them off. The moment his formation disappeared, Sasha's spell blasted off, throwing all of us to the ground. Looking up towards the sky, I watched a bright sphere soar higher and higher, just like a rocket launch. It had to be a few kilometers high when it finally exploded. The sound reached us a second later, and it was like a dragon's roar, echoing through the whole region. Holy shit! I gasped, sitting up. That was fucking awesome. The ball of fire was still flickering and glowing in the sky, dying off very slowly. Lord. I arrived at Oleg with another shout, inspecting me first like I just survived an assassination attempt. We are fine, fine. I waved my hand, checking on the two mages, and Merlin was at the edge of tears again, feeling he had done something terrible. Chin up, kiddo. I grinned, patting his face. This is what experiments are about. This is progress. If this is progress. Sasha moaned, unable to move, I want to rest before we make another advancement. I feel numb. Like when we dash. Shut up. She groaned, turning red as a tomato, not before Merlin. What is it? He asked sheepishly, returning to a good mood after my encouragement, and I couldn't help but tease them a little more. Nothing, Merlin. Sasha here just peed herself the same. I did not. But you usually do when dash. No, don't listen to him. This time, I didn't hold back any laughs as I was not just happy but excited. Magic. Damn. I need to harvest its forms. If I can manage it, I will have rockets that can escape the pull of gravity before I invent any type of combustion engine. For the next few days, I was holed up in my library, using my newest, shiniest giant tables filled with drawings of the magical circle that appeared under us. My goal was to gain some understanding of Merlin's ability, as it was clearly some strengthening type. He was a natural support character. Previously, he made the formations at the mine work better now, with his mana being focused, which forced Sasha to release her own spell without any chance of saying no. Looking at the hundreds of new runes inside of it, I finally got an even clearer picture while replaying in my mind what really happened. You should rest a little. It was Sasha who arrived, gently rubbing my back, but I was too excited even to register her words. This is awesome. I began blabbering like a little child. Looking back at it, Merlin's magic is acting like an amplifier. The moment it activated, it sensed your presence, and look at this. After a bit of rummaging through the dozens of big papers filled with my drawings, I found the one where I circled a dozen or so runes. Look. This is precisely your formation. Mine. You mean, the one I left behind on the ground once? Exactly. Merlin's own rotated and threw out the unnecessary runes right until the point they matched yours. It automatically synced up with yours. Do you know what this means? It means Merlin's magic formation has all the runes. I have all the building blocks of magic. Right here, right on this table. Are you sure? She asked, feeling it hard to believe. No, but I am pretty confident. The fact that it mimicked yours and amplified your strength means that Merlin can use his inborn gift to boost any other mage's output. He is like a little dynamo. What's that? A little mechanic thing that converts, doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that if your spell has a strength of 10, with Merlin's help, it will have the strength of 100. He is invaluable. Is he? She murmured, sounding dejected, smiling in a somewhat sad and jealous way. Don't be like this. I giggled, hugging her waist. You are just as invaluable to me. I whispered, kissing her cheek. I will still need to study these runes a lot as I can't really reference them, and putting them together willy-nilly could cause problems. I don't want to blow us up. Yeah, me neither. Anyway, it explains why he is good at learning and teaching. His natural disposition is to help others get better. I think the moment he becomes a teenager, I am going to make him my prime minister. It is best to delegate tasks so everyone can focus on the things they are the best at. He is already teaching a lot of the others. He will help me select the perfect person for the posts I need. And, what will I do? You will be my empress, of course. So you will help with my personal projects. This immediately drew a happy and satisfied smile onto her face, and I was about to kiss her when a knock disturbed my thoughts, and Oleg entered, saluting at us. I have a report to make, my lord. Yes. It's from the hyenas. Sasha looked at me questioningly, and I just chuckled, telling her I gave that nickname to the gang of Yuri. I felt it to be reasonable. What happened now? They had their second raid, and they found. Don't tell me it is another stash of CC. I shouted, my heartbeat increasing. I can't have this land to be a secret source of their crystals, or I would be fucked. If I disturb the flow of their rare resource, they will come in force to establish order, and that is the end of my dreams. And no. Oleg answered, surprised by my fearful voice. Phew. Hallelujah. That would have been catastrophic. Why? Sasha asked, but before I could continue, Oleg interrupted me hastily. My lord, they found evidence of collusion between the church and minor nobles. They are mining CC and selling them to other regions under the table. What the fuck? What a nice place I will live in. Cool. You won't be living here. Sasha said coldly, watching Uribasida looking around my half-completed throne room. I think the white and gold is coming along nicely. A bit of red would make it pop. I only slightly looked up from my chair in the middle of the raised platform, watching her spin over and over again, taking in the room's appearance. I was somewhat satisfied, as this place would be where the future of my own little empire would be decided. Right now, only my throne was prepared, and the space before it was still empty. Still, soon enough, there will be a long table where my future ministers can sit down, have their debates, and present their conclusions to me afterward. It's not real gold, I spoke up, interrupting them, my eyes returning to the stacks of papers in my hand. It's just paint. Really now? Yuri hummed, walking closer to one of the golden pillars, touching and knocking it and feeling that it was made out of wood and painted to look like solid gold. Is this made with magic? It is so real. You can think of it like that. I shrugged, not wanting to explain it to her. That was when Sasha chortled, looking down at her. It is made out of beasts. It's pretty easy if you have a little basic knowledge. But that would be too much for you. Enlighten me then, my queen. Yuri grinned, turning towards her, and before Sasha could react, she slapped her butt. We will be having threesomes a lot, so don't be shy. Educate me, and I will educate you on how to please a woman. Why you? Enough. I snorted, but deep inside, my mind was already picturing some really wild images. Damn it, brain, get a hold of yourself. I found out when young that the beasts from the mountain's other side are strange. Some of their livers produce paint-like fluid in this gold color when they are being disemboweled. It is odorless, which is weird, anyway. I painted my throne room with animal guts. Happy now? That's badass, my dear. You are making me wet again. Yuri grinned, letting Sasha go, walking before my throne, and looking up towards me with a grin. Once again, she was barely wearing anything, letting her scarred and somewhat mutilated body be on display. Brain, stop. Don't be horny. Enough. Whore. Sasha spat, walking past her and sitting on the armrest of my chair, gently caressing my hair, providing a very seductive image, clearly provoking Yuri. My dear wife, this does not help my horny brain right now, and I need to focus on the new pieces of information. This thing was troublesome. Extremely troublesome. It seemed that the previous village's governor, who was off by Yuri's gang, had been secretly working with the church for the past 2 years without notifying anyone else. They found a vein in the mountains, and they have been slowly chipping at it, gathering CC up and slowly selling them away. Their stash was as full as we found it because it took a lot of work to find a buyer, and they had to be careful. Very careful. If I didn't deal with this carefully, this could be bad. So. Any rewards? Some extra. You can knock me up, I will give you an heir. I will pass. I answered before Sasha could. You brought me trouble, not joy, with this discovery. I groaned heavily. I'm up for a spanking too. I am hungry for some quality fun time besides getting some poor fucker. She grinned, and I could swear her eyes were glittering with delight. I will reward you if you go and work with Oleg and begin openly arresting the remaining nobles, I said in a firm voice, putting the papers down and looking directly at her. Only kill those who resist. Their heads need to be intact because I will need them for later. Roger. That is why you called us here. Yeah. Oleg is waiting for you, follow his orders. Can you do that or not? Woof. I was watching her wiggle her butt towards me while leaving, and I couldn't help but shake my head, trying to throw out the evil and perverted thoughts. I can do it better. Sasha murmured, which finally made me chuckle. For sure. This news really took a dump on my dinner table. What will we do now? She asked, feeling nervous as she didn't want to be discovered by the Empire. I already had a talk with my parents. Father has mobilized our army and is closing down the border crossings. We will conduct a raid on all the nobles and arrest them one by one. That will. It's not the end. I continued, raising a hand to halt her thoughts. I determined to be proactive. I planned to sacrifice Yuri and her gang, but now I am thinking otherwise. They are proving to be useful, so I will retrain them to be my knife in the dark. I don't know if they can be trained. I will just need to keep Yuri in check, and she will deal with her goons. Working with Oleg is the first test. If they fail, I instructed him to kill them all. But I need a group for my dirty work. One that I can deny any connection to if they are caught. Anyway, back to the problem at hand. We will capture the priests, too, and bring everyone to the capital. Of course, those who are in the know of why, their head figures, well. Only their heads will come with us. So that the Empire doesn't come and do it themselves. Are you going to use this against your uncle, too? You do learn quick. I grinned, giving her a kiss, making her smile happily, yep. They wouldn't believe it could have been done without a proper noble's help. Mother is already on her way to visit Elliot in secret. They will plant evidence in my pig of an uncle's treasury and also into those nobles' ledgers who are firm supporters of him. Then we will let the Empire clean house and reward us for being good puppies. If they believe our story, I will be persuasive. I laughed, but yes, that was an unknown factor, waiting to be seen. And you will need to hide the fact that there is a mine here. Yes. That is why the top figures will be made sure to be dead, and only their heads will come with us. I nodded heavily. We will make it so that my uncle is the mastermind, sourcing CC and making a big profit for himself. This also means when we go to the capital city, we are bringing along all the CC we have. We need to show our loyalty to the Empire. This is a risky move, but I think pulling it off will ensure that they don't bother us in the foreseeable future. Why not just work with the church? Sasha, my dear, I never expected you to ask something like this. I grinned, knowing she hated them. I am not unreasonable. She pouted cutely, making me tickle her and pull her into my lap. I won't work with them because that would make me an accomplice, and if things go down, I would be easily blackmailed. No. I will pretend to be the most loyal subject and make sure this backwater region remains out of the focus of the big and scary Empire. At least, until we can defend ourselves. Traveling to the Empire's capital city would be long and exhausting. I knew that, and my estimations told me that I would probably miss a good chunk of the year, so I ensured everyone had their missions and tasks delegated while I was gone. When I returned, I made it clear what I wanted to see finished and left everything to my mother and Sasha. Take care. Sasha murmured, standing next to my carriage when I was about to board it. I know you want to come, but what if they discover your gift? I smiled at her, giving her a long kiss. I'll be back before you know. Don't worry, I will satisfy him. Echoed Yuri's loud voice from the side, sitting atop her horse. Humph. Don't knock up that crazy one. She whispered to me, almost making me choke on my saliva. I am sure she has some disease between her legs. Well, my dear Sasha, your jealousy is something else. I didn't wait any longer as it would be a tiresome trek anyway, so it was time to move out instead of further delaying it. First, we would visit my uncle's place, and Elliot would join us. At least on paper, we will conduct an official visit to the capital. All because of some new trading rights, that is what my Uncle Piggy would be told. It was a half-truth, as our cargo would be the heads and his life. Not that he would want to come, as leaving his castle is already a strain on his great figure. Your bandits were surprisingly obedient. Father chuckled, sitting at the opposite side of me, taking up the two-seater, looking out the window, watching Yuri ride her horse along with Oleg. Following all the orders of the soldiers, hey. I didn't think it would be possible. I was also surprised, but it shows they are trainable. Vicious and bloodthirsty but controllable. As long as I know what Yuri wants. MMHM. She is a sick woman, but that makes it interesting. Those scars on her show remarkable will to survive and continue living despite her appeal being destroyed. Geez, you are ruthless, Dad. Anyway, make her dress up properly when getting to the capital. There are laws in place that dictate how much skin she can show. Really now? I asked, as it was my first time hearing about it. Nothing serious, but a long dress or skirt is preferable. Bare shoulders are allowed, but the way she flaunts her almost naked torso would be thrown into a pillory, naked, and offered for public use. What? I choked, taking a sip from my flask, filled with fruit wine. You mean, there is a dress code which, if breached, the offender is punished by public indecency. What is this? Nero's laws. No, Emperor Nero ruled further back. His most famous law that is still remembered is that you can't marry within the family for more than 2 generations. Emperor Isborn made the public shaming law some 200 years ago. He loved watching it happen. Since then, it remained in effect. What the fuck? You see, old laws established by the other rulers are rarely revoked or changed. Maybe they get slowly forgotten about, but changing it goes against the image of the empire. Our monarchs are chosen because they are the best of us. Their bloodline contains the righteousness of gods, so their decisions can't be wrong or questioned. That is how it is. Well, going by their church, the righteousness doesn't last long, eh? I groaned, shaking my head. The massacre that happened a few days ago was surprising. When we confronted the local church, they were fighting viciously to escape, even killing multiple innocents trying to use them as hostages or meat shields. It was a total shit show, so we left none alive. By the end of it, their headless corpses were dragged away by the ordinary people, being paraded around the town. The church's brutal act quickly turned everyone against them, so at least I don't need to find excuses for why we did what we did. We exchanged letters with Elliot. After a brief silence, Father added, "He will bring the evidence that supports us. The little bastard is really crafty. Your mother said his forgeries would fool even her." "Is he a bastard as in bastard or?" I asked, ready for some juicy gossip, but I was disappointed. "Nah, he is alright, I just like calling him that. Anyway, if everything goes smoothly, you will be named the new ruler of our region, and I can finally relax." "Huh. Duh." He laughed, taking out his own flask and swinging it hard. "Everything will be your achievement. I will step down, and you will take over. Don't worry, I will live in the castle with your mother, beating back beasts in the winter and fucking like bunnies. It will be like when we married." Why am I not surprised? I moaned softly, rubbing my face, but it wasn't like I wasn't doing that already. No wonder they were content with letting me do what I wanted. They were enjoying their early retirement. Bwahaha. You will do fine, you are already doing it. Our little caravan was an interesting sight throughout the journey, but it kept most people away when they saw my family's flags. It was a simple but recognizable symbol as it was the image of a white rook before a black mountain, the identifying mark of the frontier region. Our journey went through the middle regions of Ashilia, a very flat land dotted with nothing but thousands of square kilometers of farmland. I thought this whole world was nothing but wheat fields while passing through. "What is the long face for, my dear? Want me to suck you off?" Yuri asked, riding next to me. "Just bored, nothing more." I answered, not wanting to entertain her offer because it sounded way better than looking at another wheat field. I expected more, but, damn. This was just as boring as watching paint dry. "Let's do it on the back of the horses. I sit in your lap, and we start galloping. We can fuck by matching the rhythm." "Why are you so horny all the time?" I asked, looking at her with one eye. I was now questioning if it was a good idea to borrow a horse from one of the soldiers and decide to change up the monotone journey a little. Because I am also bored. So are my girls. At least they can have fun with the guys when we make camp. What? I chortled, looking around, but it made sense. "And you are doing nothing. Are you pulling my leg or something?" "I am keeping myself for you." "Yeah, sure. If I lie, fuck one of my eyes out," she said forcibly, and I was surprised by how serious she was. "I can't risk it, my young baby daddy. Stop calling me weird names. It's the truth. If some other dick-wielding blabberfuck makes me pregnant, how am I supposed to bag my princess status? To hell with me if I risk that. I am not fucking around here. Literally. You take this extra seriously, aren't you?" I shrugged, sighing again. Of course. I learned quick enough that power is everything. My sweet prince, you are my ticket to the seat of ultimate power. Are you seeing me as a vibrator? I don't know what that is. What does it vibrate? Sounds fun. Whatever. I waved a hand, not wanting to get into it. Were you always like this? Pretty much. Only I was more put together. I still had both of my breasts until I turned 13. Then one was mangled so much in a fight it had to go. What type of fight? I asked, curious about her past. Life or death? Most of my battles were that. She explained it without issues, telling me everything without wincing or looking hurt. I was sold away early. My first memories are about being railed in a cheap brothel. Sore dash, but before I could even say the word, she waved her hand. Nah, it happens. I don't care because I made my own fortune. By the time I was 10, I had 7 kills under my belt, and I robbed the fuckers blind. It was easy to get into their bed as little bitch. Good sex, and I slit their throats while doing it. They never suspected a thing, and then I just had to leave with the money. You do realize that this makes me more reluctant to get naked with you. Don't worry, my prince. She laughed. I wouldn't hurt my ticket to a good life. No wonder you are this wicked. Shit, you have been disfigured in the head. I'm liking it like this. She countered me with a hearty laugh. I am me, pure and undiluted passion. I wear no fake masks and say no honeyed words because I am what I show. Have a problem with it? Too bad, ahaha. How did you collect the rest of the girls? I asked before she would go on another tangent. Trained them myself. The first of my partners is no longer alive, but she accompanied me to a guy to serve him, and when I offed the old prick, she got hooked on it there and then. We did multiple heists together, and it was awesome. Later on, we gathered more girls, and, well, here we are. What happened to her? Blown up. We had a botched run-in with a mage. We realized it too late, and when she struck down while riding the guy, an energy field blocked her swing and blew off her torso. Instant death. Luckily, he thought it was her idea, and I could play it off as a scared little girl. Wait, wait, wait. I almost yelled out, and Yuri just shrugged. It was a quick death. It was always a possibility in this type of work. She began speaking, rolling her eyes. What energy field are you talking about? Oh. That. It took her a while to continue, recollecting her memories. Yeah, I think it was the necklace he was wearing. It lit up before turning into dust. It blocked the strike, and the rebounding force tore Umi apart like a paper doll. Was it CC? I asked, not really expecting an answer. MMMM. It could have been. I don't remember too many minute details. My mind was focused on playing the crying, terrified little girl persona to not get killed. Are you sure it was a mage? Yep. He used a long incantation afterward, cleaning up the mess with a spell. It was the first time I saw magic. It was pretty awesome. But I wanted to avoid running into another one, so we moved to your region. I guessed that in a backward place, there were easier targets. It had to be a one-time use artifact. I whispered, already thinking about multiple possibilities. So they have artifacts developed. One-time use trinkets. Maybe even weapons. I guess I won't really be able to find out more about them, not even in the capital city. But that doesn't mean I won't try. While traveling forward, my mind was stuck on thinking about the usage of CC. So, techniques that gave them different properties and made use of them were already developed. My next question was, how far did they go with it? What could I do with them? How will I get my hands on some samples to reverse engineer it? I discussed this with my uncle, too, while traveling, having exciting debates with him throughout the nights, the perfect reason to ignore Yuri, who was trying to rape me. No, I'm not joking. One night, I woke up to her sneaking into my tent, all naked, trying to tie me up. It was the harshest beatdown my guards received from Oleg and me. Especially from my general because I made him responsible for failing to guard me, and he took it to heart. Good, because Yuri is a wild card, and what if she decides that she wants to relive her old habits? I had a feeling that it all happened with my father's blessing because I had seen him laugh, turning his back to me. We are getting close, my lord. It was Oleg's voice that disrupted my thoughts, and he was talking to my father. Leaning out of the carriage, I could see a massive city in the distance. It was right in the middle of a flat field, and a circle of 30-meter-high walls surrounded its central part. Before that monstrosity, I could see a secondary city and then a circular moat. No, it wasn't a moat. That was a river. I was sure it wasn't natural as it was a perfect circle where the city stood while flowing from the north and heading down south. I know of no river that does a roundabout by itself. From the land, 9 bridges connected to the secondary circle, and we were on a stone road, heading towards one of them. Now, this is what I expected. I whispered as this was the type of city I imagined when I realized I had been granted a new life. It is unique. Father laughed, patting my shoulder. This city has never been conquered and has been standing here for thousands of years. At least, that is the legend. Yeah, sure. Yuri scoffed, her eyes more interested in the passing by caravans, and I knew she wanted to rob them. Although her scarred body was now hiding behind standard leather armor, I could see her fingers twitching on her horse's rein. The outer city is where 60% of the population is concentrated. Father continued explaining, the 9 bridges are all numbered and lead to different regions of the Empire of Ashilia. Our first stop will be at the foot of the 9th bridge. They will be examining our identities, and until they are confirmed, be mindful. I am a Viscount, but that means nothing here. I know. I don't. Yuri added, and Father looked at me, telling me with his eyes that she would be my responsibility. Come here. No, I will go there. I grunted and climbed out of the carriage window, quickly hopping onto her horse and hugging her from behind. Oh. Are we finally fucking? No, I answered, holding her waist down as she was already leaning forward, ready to press her bottom against my crotch. I am here to tell you what you need to know, and you will listen to me. I am saying it directly into your ear, so you can't say you didn't hear it. TSK. Go on. She grunted, sitting back properly. First. You and Oleg are my personal guards. Only speak when I permit it. Hey, are you playing the role of the owner of my leash? I am your owner. I replied coldly, and I could see her shiver a little. Should I choke you out again? Yeah, that made me come so hard. When I heard what she said, somehow, I didn't doubt Yuri. Listen to me. I raised my voice before she went into a degenerate ranting once again. We are a Viscount. Above us here are still counts, who rule the neighboring land, and earls, who oversee certain parts of the city. They are more or less equivalent here, but they are above us. Even if an earl here has as much land under him as a village in our region, he is still above me in rank. Okay. Don't piss off my boss's boss. Got it. Not just that. There are still the ranks of Marquis and Duke above them. Piss off the wrong people, and I will toss you to the wolves. Want to be powerful? Yeah. She nodded, grinding her crotch against the saddle. Powerful enough to piss on the current emperor's head. Oh fuck yeah. She moaned even louder, shuddering. Then follow every word I say while here, and you can get closer to that power. Screw this up, and I abandon you without fucking you once. Got it. Geez, you know how to speak to a woman. I'm wet. No, you are fucking crazy. I shrugged, turning her head away as she wanted to kiss. Or bite my face. I couldn't really tell. Focus on the road, got it? Yeah, my master. Ah. Shit. Talk to me like this next time, too. If you spark my fantasies this hard, I will get pregnant from your voice alone. Son. I turned towards the carriage, seeing my father flash a thumbs up at me. Keep her in line, just like that. Don't worry, a few concubines are normal for an emperor. Thanks, Daddy. Yuri cheerfully shouted back at him while I couldn't help but shrug. This was building up to be a disaster. The stop at the bridge went smoother than I first expected. The structure itself was around 20 or 30 meters wide and had 2 lanes, separated in the middle by a waist-height wall. The left one was for the regular people and merchants to use, coming and going in great quantity, while the right side was for nobles. Thanks to this, we didn't have to wait for long. A handful of soldiers appeared at a moment's notice and conducted the inspection of our identities from a thick codex. Watching their armor, it was clean, new-looking. It consisted of black cloth undergarments with shiny, silver plates strapped to their arms, chest, and legs, giving the feeling of a knight, but not one that would be useful in battle. Mainly because these were highly decorated and way thinner than they should have been, with golden accents and the image of a sun plastered everywhere on it. You don't use armor like this for battle, not when the soldier would drag it through mud and guts. Show-offs. I murmured as silently as I could, but Yuri next to me clearly heard it because she let out a small chuckle. Luckily, it didn't bother anyone, and after Father proved who we were, including my uncle, before we were let into the city. My follow-up surprise came from being assigned a whole courtyard to stay in, with a fully supplied stable and maids waiting for us. It wasn't as big as my newly built palace, but it was still impressive. At least being a noble had its advantages. While we entered, I tried scanning the outer city, and I could tell that most buildings here were made out of stone, and people were well dressed. Most important of all, nothing smelled like piss and shit. Which meant the frontier region was just that. A shithole. Well, not anymore. Ha! I will trump this city with mine. What are you grinning for? Yuri asked, but before she could poke my sides, Oleg grabbed her wrist with full force, making her moan. You are gonna break my wrist, big guy. How will I jack off my prince then? Don't touch him. I wasn't in the mood to interact with the two, so I left them there and began exploring our temporary home. Since my scolding, Oleg has become hypersensitive. The best course of action was to let him cool down. As for Yuri, probably, euthanasia would be the only solution. As nobles, my father, my uncle, and I had a different wing to ourselves in the mansion that reminded me of a Renaissance-era chateau. My room was on the first floor, and opening its heavy, thick wooden door greeted me with a lovely view. It was pretty spacious, having my own huge bed, a separate garden that was only accessible through my room, and a fireplace with a wide couch before it. And right on it slept a young girl. A teenager. She was totally out and defenseless, and she was wearing maid clothing on top of it. Walking closer, I got a better view as she was lying on her back, a half grin on her face, drooling a little. MMM. A gift for the nobles. I asked myself, examining her heart-shaped face that was ripe for placing it between my palms and mushing it a little. Damn, she was cute. Like a little kitten. She was compact. That was the best way to describe her, as she wasn't tall, nor was she thick. But she wasn't as thin as Sasha when I first met her. Although, I couldn't really tell her 3 sizes, not with this many clothes on. Damn it. Yuri's effect has been poisoning my mind. While I was leaning over her, it seemed my presence disturbed her sleep because it made her wake up and open her mismatched eyes. Oh. We both said, but hers was frightened while mine was amused. Her left eye was green as a polished emerald, while her right eye was the deepest amethyst I have ever seen. A unique beauty. Good morning, sleepyhead. Hiya. With a scream, she scrambled to her feet, climbed over the couch, and fell onto her head, giving me a perfect look at her blue-striped panties. This city has better clothing stores and a proper fashion sense, unlike mine, huh? I already guessed so because of how the people were dressing here. Now I felt like a hillbilly coming to town. My home was centuries behind the capital city. Is this a joke? Are you okay? With a chuckle, I walked over, helping her up, fixing her clothes and messy, long black hair while using the occasion to get a quick, subtle feel. She was soft. Why yes, I was cleaning the room and, who are you? My name is Leon, and I am here on official business with my family. Which family? She asked, looking confused, trying to figure it out, but I looked out of place with my red hair. Since coming here, I have seen nobody else having it. My father is Kalash, Lion of the Frontier. Hiya. The barbarians. I couldn't help but stand still, feeling my eyelids twitch, watching her get teary-eyed and begin trembling. What she did was probably worthy of flogging. Name? I asked, trying to sound unbothered, but now I finally had a first-hand experience of what the others think about my home, and it made me sound irritated. Because I was. Luna, my lord. She answered, bowing with elegance. I won't bother. She wanted to leave, but I reached out with a hand, stopping her physically. Good. I need a personal maid who follows me around and does what I say while staying here. I will notify the dash. Thank you for volunteering, Luna. I didn't. She sounded like she was on the verge of a mental breakdown, but I wasn't budging. You did. Just right now. So, Luna. I smiled and probably looked like some kind of cliché evil noble from a soap opera. Please. Show me around the place. Who's the little foo? Did I permit you to speak? I asked before Yuri had a chance to finish the sentence. Thought so. She is Luna, a maid who volunteered to show us around. Greetings. She curtsied, looking shy and reserved, but I knew that she was probably crying in her head. They are my personal guards. Yuri and Oleg. You can ignore most of the things Yuri says as she is sick in the head. I am not. She answered, but after I gave her a doubtful look, she simply shrugged her shoulders. Whatever. You're the boss. Leon. My father's shout reached me, and as I looked around, I saw him hanging out from one of the windows on the first floor. Heading out. That was my plan. I want to look around the city a little. Don't stray far, we may be insignificant, but that doesn't mean some other nobles wouldn't want to use us in some idiotic ploy. We are only staying for a few days, don't stir shit up for your old man. The meeting will happen tomorrow, the first thing in the morning. Getting an appointment with the Empress herself was hard, so I want no problems. No worries, Dad. I got it. I am not worried about you. Whatever. We will go over most things with your uncle, and we will have a meeting after dinner. Be back by then. Sure. You will have a meeting with the Empress? Luna asked, stuttering, feeling her legs wobble like jelly. Yeah, why? I asked, not getting her sudden dizziness and why her face had abruptly turned whiter than chalk. Meeting the Empress of Envy. I wouldn't dare do that, not even if I am a noble. Huh. We looked at each other before now surrounding Luna. What do you mean? You are really clueless, aren't you? KHM. She flinched, holding back her tongue and looking at me with pleading eyes. Can we go to a place where nobody can listen in? I don't want to end up without my head. Please. This sounds juicy. Yuri grinned, licking her lips, and I couldn't help but agree. I'm hungry. Luna, take us to a place you think is fine, and we will sit down, chat, and have a fulfilling lunch. I have no money. She whispered, which was a surprise. I thought she would catch on quicker. I will pay. Really? It was as if a switch had been flipped. She looked much more eager and ready, the shaking evaporating at once, her legs standing firm and travel ready. Okay. This isn't a prank, yes? No. I answered seriously and honestly. We are not barbarians. That made her blush and fall silent, looking at the ground, drawing circles with her toes. Now that we have established our first goal, let's go. I am interested in what you can tell us. Maids are nice. Yuri grinned, watching her from behind as we began walking. They can get into nobles' beds and gain some juicy information. I am not that kind of a maid. Luna protested, looking over her shoulder, her face turning red like an apple. Those types of maids always say the same. Yuri countered, but then I interrupted them. I still needed Luna to spill the beans. The best course for this was being on her good side. Just look at her walking, her speech pattern, and how she carries herself. She is a proper maid, and you are a street kid, Yuri. Surprisingly, she didn't shoot back, and watching her eyes, I saw she quickly caught on to what I was doing, playing along. I should remind myself that although she acts crazy, she has sharp senses and a quick mind. Or she wouldn't have lived this long. My compliments quickly did their job as Luna walked much more happily next to us, feeling proud, leading us to only a street away from our mansion, right to a 2-story restaurant. Mugs filled. Oleg murmured, reading the sign above the front door as we walked in. Filled mugs. Weird. They have been here for more than 100 years. Luna explained proudly, but I wasn't really listening. On the way here, I was inspecting the roads and buildings, all made out of stone and bricks. There was not one that was made out of wood or any much easier material to get and work with. The way the city was built was a minimum of 5 or 6 centuries away from what was present in either our territory or my uncle's region. Not to mention, I didn't see any mines nearby, so all of it had to be transported here from elsewhere. This also meant that the technology that the Empire was sitting on was way more advanced than I first thought about. I just never guessed that there could be this much of a difference between regions within the same empire. Is he okay? Luna asked, and her question knocked me back to reality. He is fine. When my boss's mind gets ticking, he goes into this ultra-focused mode. Then why are you squeezing my thighs? I asked Yuri, who quickly withdrew her hands with a grin, not explaining anything, making Oleg snort and Luna blush. Let's switch. My general suggested, but we were already seated at a private booth on the second floor, reserved only for nobles. Leave it. I shrugged, looking around, examining the empty tables as right now we were the only ones up here. You can't turn a wolf into a sheep anyway. Woof. You are weird. Luna whispered, making me look at her. She looked even tinier, with Oleg sitting next to her. Before I could question her, the waitress came up, wearing an article of red and white clothing with an apron, reminding me of how waitresses used to dress in old movies. At least, in my old life, that is. She was young, a teenager maybe, and clearly nervous but also happy that she could serve nobles. Was she expecting tips? Is tipping a thing here? Damn. I truly felt like a country boy coming to the big city for the first time. In the end, I let Luna order for all of us, and going by the names of the dishes, I was sure we would get some chicken and beef with either rice or potatoes. I wasn't sure and couldn't deduce it from the names alone. While the dishes were being prepared, the young waitress suggested we order drinks, and I was expecting the usual. Oleg and Yuri didn't hesitate to call for some wine, while Luna only asked for water. Me. I was feeling mischievous. Coffee. Most certainly. She smiled, bowing, and hurrying away, leaving me awestruck. Coffee. The others asked, looking at me, and they were just as dumbfounded. I didn't know it would work. I said honestly before shaking my head. I will need to get me some for home. I almost added that I was missing the taste of a good coffee but managed to hold the last part in. I didn't know about any nobles who drink coffee. It is the ordinary people's drink. It seemed Luna rarely could hold in her thoughts, speaking them out loud again, making Yuri nod. Yeah, and soldiers. They say it is the workers' and slaves' drink. It keeps them functioning longer. Bullshit. I scoffed, now feeling angry. It is the best drink. Period. Oleg, no. I don't care what you want to say. Coffee is the best. I didn't try to say anything. He murmured, glancing away, looking troubled. Okay, while we wait, we can have a little chit-chat. So, Luna, please explain. I said hurriedly, ending the conversation. Well, this place is dash. Don't play dumb. I chuckled, seeing her try to divert the topic, Empress of Envy. Why? Please don't say it out loud, it is not something you want others to hear. She pleaded, looking around, but luckily, the waitress hadn't returned yet. She ascended the throne 12 years ago, and since then, they say whenever she found something she liked, it simply disappeared. Taken away and placed into her private collection. I know that there have been some laws made that prohibit other nobles from wearing certain colors, like purple. Or black. Or crimson. Only the royal family is allowed to appear at events, donning those colors. PFT. I could barely hold back my laughter after hearing it. It isn't funny. Luna complained, pouting, turning silent while our drinks arrived. It is. It is precisely what I imagine that some self-centered noble would do. I countered, lifting up my mug and enjoying the aroma I had subconsciously missed for all these years. Oh yes, this needs to be imported, like, immediately. They say people who meet with her try to look mundane, so she doesn't find something interesting about them and takes it away. There were rumors that. She stopped momentarily, looking around twice before whispering, even people have gone missing. Spooky. But I wouldn't worry. We are here to report, and our family is tasked with guarding the frontier. I don't think our barbarian lineage has anything worthy of an empress, That's true. She nodded, agreeing without hesitation before her mind realized what she had done, turning white and teary-eyed. Barbarian. Oleg scoffed, his fingers squeezing the metal mug in his hand, leaving imprints on it. What a brave observation. Have you ever visited the frontier? And no. Luna answered, looking up at Oleg, gulping multiple times, shaking like a lonely leaf in the wind. I bet she never even left the city. Yuri added, leaning back in her chair, enjoying her wine. Why yes. That makes me curious. I interrupted them, what is your background? I am just a maid, nobody important. Explain. I pressed on, resting my chin on my crossed fingers. I can learn it in multiple ways. I just want it from the source first. Haw. Well, I am Luna Gottfried. My family were the servants of Earl Sigismund, but that line died out 40 years ago, so since then, we have been dwindling in reputation and numbers. Families that lose their noble backing usually fall further and further down if they don't find a new family to serve. I just finished my training and this was my first job, taking care of an empty mansion, I didn't know guests were coming. Why don't you strike out to do something else? A new profession? I asked, honestly curious about her situation. Do what? She moaned, lowering her head in dejection. You don't know what it is like here, huh? It is all about background. Prestige. Rank. Families like mine have no chance to rise or change. We have been servants since we wrote memoirs within my family hundreds of years ago, and we will die out as one. Earl Sigismund's enemies are still present, and anybody taking us in would also say they are the late Earl's supporters. I thought they died out. Yuri asked, baffled, but Luna just sighed again. That doesn't matter. Not for nobles. Lucky me and my birth. I laughed, looking towards the stairs, seeing our food arrive. I wouldn't want to live here. Luna didn't really get that, but that's fine. I didn't try to explain it either. Instead, I focused on the nice roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. I need to bring back some recipes they know how to cook. I was just about to finish my meal, enjoying the last bites of food, when loud noises interrupted it. Looking at the stairs, I saw a group of young men coming up, wearing flashy blue, gold, orange, and green-colored silk clothes. They were like a clown troupe, stinking from cheap cologne. Are those silk pants? I moaned, holding my head, rubbing my temple, not believing my darned luck. My lord. Oleg asked, not getting me, and neither did the two girls at our table. Of course they are. Of course, there are silk pants here, why wouldn't there be? I continued ignoring them, praying for fate not to do it, but of course, it wasn't listening. Or it was and was laughing behind my back. Who's the weird guy? One of them laughed like a hyena as they approached our table. Of course, they are approaching me. Why the fuck wouldn't they? Leave it to me. I whispered, telling Oleg and Yuri to stay put. There was not really time to start a conflict, not when we can easily screw ourselves over. I tried ignoring the clowns as they approached us, stopping next to our table, but it was evident that wouldn't work. Are you really a noble? Because you are dressed like some horseshit shoveler. The kid in the green clothes chuckled, scanning me with mocking eyes. Well, I answered after wiping my mouth, glancing at his fair expression, his gelled back, blonde hair, finally settling down on his blue eyes. I am from the frontier. It was interesting to see their expressions change for a minute, looking at each other before the same guy continued. No wonder. Barbarians have no taste in clothes. It is surprising they know how to dress up. I thought they all wore animal skins and slept in caves. The one in blue chimed in, laughing like a crow with a sore throat. True. I answered calmly, no longer looking at them, watching Oleg instead, who was waiting for a signal to knock their teeth out. We do wear animal skins, and I got my wife by smashing her over the head with a stick. It's the best unga bunga I've had in a while. Is that her? They cackled, pointing at Yuri. The wildman married a fucking dreg from the border region. They do have feral tastes. Thigh-test pussy I have ever tasted. I added with a chuckle, standing up and nodding at the others that we should leave. Luna was the first to follow my order, not even registering my words, wanting nothing more than to disappear and run away. When Oleg stood up, they did flinch as he was bigger than the four idiots put together. However, their sudden doubts didn't last longer than their brain remembering they were nobles in the capital city. Is it now? They blocked our way, now looking at Yuri, who was smiling amicably, surprisingly well-mannered and silent. Wait. Is she now deciding to follow my order and remain muted until I say so? Isn't it customary to bring presents when coming to visit? We would like to taste the beauty of a faraway land. I doubt it. Come on, we are in the same echelon, aren't we? The one in the green clothes laughed, hugging my shoulders as if we were long-lost pals. Let's have some fun, we wouldn't break her. At first, I remained silent, not because I lost my voice but because their cologne smelled like a public toilet from up close. Did they use some cheap shit to mask the fact they were not bathing regularly? Anyway, I wasn't really interested in what they wanted to do. Sure. I answered readily, shocking not just them but Oleg and Luna too. Ha. Finally, Yuri couldn't hold it back and laughed a little, but she quickly forced it down, standing there, trying not to grin. Strip. I ordered, looking at her, which made her shudder, beginning to quickly throw down her top clothes, revealing her scarred body without any shame. What the fuck? The silk pants cried out in tandem, reeling a little, backing away, while I glanced at them, holding up my hand at Yuri to stop. Is there a problem? I asked, looking confused, tilting my head a little. Where I come from, we like it rough. I did use her a bit hard, I admit, biting off one of her breasts. But she is just a meat to fuck, so if she expires, I will get a new one. Is it really that weird? You city folk are too soft. Husband, Yuri chimed in with an excited voice, and I could hear it in her breathing that she was totally fired up. I hope they can hurt me satisfactorily. I never had so many strong men trying to rend me to a horrid spectacle. I wanted to ask why she was using words I guessed she didn't even know the meaning of, but oh well. The frightened and disgusted faces of these silk pants were satisfying enough. Don't worry. I will be watching. If they don't make you scream, I will step in and show them how it is done. I will go and prepare the ropes, the hooks, and the heated iron. The what? They asked, their voice going an octave higher, watching me with revulsion. The accessories for good sex, of course. I answered, looking at them as if they asked the dumbest question possible. Pain is an essential part of pleasure, so she will also inflict it on us. It makes it more spicier. Let's go. Now I am excited. I think that was what broke their bravery as they began backing out without giving a correct explanation as to why they were hurrying out of the restaurant. Barbarian. Luna murmured, looking pityingly at Yuri, who was heaving like a dog in heat. I was lying. I added, feeling compelled to say it as Luna's gaze was weird. No, we do that. We do that for real. Come, my husband, fuck me here and now. You can choke me out. Again. No, and start dressing up. I groaned, and it was Oleg who had to forcefully put the clothes back on Yuri, who acted more like a kid with massive tantrum issues than a killer bandit leader. It was just a lie. Luna asked again, her eyes going back and forth between us, and I couldn't read her thoughts. Was she disgusted? Afraid? Disappointed? Her mismatched eyes were displaying a way too varied range of emotions. Duh. I told you she isn't completely normal in the head. Anyway, the problem was averted. Let's go. I still want you to lead us around the city a little. I want to see the parts you think are interesting. But, if they retell it, a rumor and your reputation, and... Luna stuttered, trying to comprehend it. It would matter if I cared about it. But I don't. So let's go, it's time to move on. I watched Luna lead us back down, her brain trying to make sense of what just happened while I paid, giving a little tip. I could sense the nervousness in our little waitress and in the owner as they expected a fight to break out. It could have easily made it so their lives were over, along with their business. Damn. I moaned after we were out, patting my shrunken coin purse on my waist. I didn't know the city would be this expensive. Half of my coins are gone from lunch. What's wrong with this place? Were we scammed? I complained, making Luna blush, my ranting interrupted by Yuri, who was still breathing heavily. I can rob us some fools, ah. Let's find those idiots and kill them, their clothes would sell for sure. What? Luna yelled like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. No killing. I knocked on Yuri's head, which made her moan, plus, you would ruin the silk, and with bloody, torn fabric, you could not make any profit. Idiot. Then just kill them. Go home and masturbate or something. I sighed, rubbing my forehead, knowing now she wouldn't shut up for the time being. Let's go. Instead of standing still on the street, I stepped behind Luna, holding her shoulders and pushing her forward so we could explore the nearby streets. Did I come late? I asked, coming into the study way after sundown, wearing a fresh set of clothes. A bit, but not much. Father nodded, sitting on a couch with my uncle, drinking wine. How's the city? Fine. I shrugged, not wanting to go into the details. I got a good look at the architecture, and I presently felt confident in my conclusion that they were built with such precision they rivaled the world in my previous life. I was proud of giving my people back home the option to bathe in their homes, yet here I was, seeing drinking fountains at every corner. Even this mansion had a bathroom and flushable toilets. Yes, flushable toilets. Damn. What's the problem? Something happened. Father asked, but I just sighed again, smiling at him. No, nothing like that. I am just surprised by the difference between the regions. I feel like I traveled forward in time. This city is special, you can't compare it to other places. Elliot chuckled, trying to lift my spirits. Maybe. Also, I think I started spreading another weird rumor about ourselves, Father. Sorry about that. Who cares? He chuckled, giving me a cup of wine. This city is far away from us, so don't stress about it. Rumors are what makes this city tick, so there would be some even if you did nothing. My uncle added before turning a bit more serious, listen, Leon, tomorrow will be important. I am fully aware of that. I have been hearing it since coming near the city. First, let's go through the protocol. Elliot continued, without addressing my complaint, we will arrive in time, only the three of us will enter the palace, and we will wait, silently, until we are called. When entering, you can't look the Empress in the eye, not until you are given permission to do so. Noted. I nodded, you already told me this. Stay in a slight bow, and speak when spoken to. Until Father says what he must and I am officially named his successor, I am a nobody who should be thankful to be in the presence of the Empress. Believe it or not, I can play the little ant when I must. I won't cause problems, not when what I am doing behind the scenes is worthy of losing my head. Exactly. Elliot pressed on, looking into my eyes, we will present our findings, the evidence, and wait for a verdict. After the meeting, if everything went smoothly, Father interjected, continuing my uncle's thoughts, we will return here, pack up and leave. Right away. Now, that was a surprise. The city is dangerous, so yes. The longer we stay, the higher the chance we will be dragged into some scheme and sacrificed for a cause we have nothing to do with. A bit disappointing but duly noted. Then, I will go to sleep early and wake up even earlier. I chuckled, standing up before being reminded of what I wanted to mention. What would happen if I asked for the Gottfried family to be assigned under me? Who? They asked simultaneously, looking at me seriously as I sat back down, explaining everything. Well, a dead family like that wouldn't cause us many problems. Father murmured, scratching his chin. The problem would be the family itself. They wouldn't be able to refuse if they are officially signed under you, but they would feel it as an exile. Families that are born here are extremely prejudicious and would think that moving out the city is discarding them to the pigs. Elliot added, holding a slight smile on his face. I was thinking about it and realized that I would need a trained, proper family back home who could help me keep the place clean and organized. Secretaries make it much more easy to keep track of things. Secret tallies? Father asked, making me chuckle and explain quickly that I meant a capable, administering body. I see. No guarantees, son. But, there is a chance that when you get appointed as the new Lord of the Frontier, you get to ask for something. There is a custom where new nobles get something from the Empire so they don't forget which hand feeds them. But don't get hopeful. Elliot warned me, right now, with Envy herself on the throne, that thing may be an event of the past. I did what I said I would do and woke up before the sun had a chance to peek above the horizon. After a quick shower, I put on the best dress I had, which was not made out of silk but still gave me the look of a noble. Or more like some kind of governor of a Spanish colony in the 18th century. To my surprise, my father and uncle were both up and ready, so after a brief breakfast, we stepped out of the mansion and prepared to board a carriage that would take us into the middle of the city. That was when I heard it. A low, resounding echo of a horn, coming from afar, making my insides vibrate. Looking up, I felt my jaw slowly drop as I saw a giant, flying ship come from the west, heading straight to the inner circle. I couldn't see or hear anything else as I just watched it sail over us, getting bigger and bigger as it descended and made its landing. From the outside, it looked like a ship from a pirate movie I liked to watch as a kid. The only difference is that it flew through the air, its giant sails billowing above, while its underbelly was surrounded by a faint blue hue. I recognized it, that was the hue of mana. I couldn't see the magic circles, which were probably operating within its body, but I knew what that light meant. "We are lucky," my uncle whispered, patting me on the back, making me flinch, returning to reality. "That's Justice. I guess that is the ship's name?" I asked, finally getting into the carriage as we began traveling forward. "Yes, Father." I turned towards him. "Did you ever see it before?" "I never read about it." "I saw it once." He nodded, letting out a nostalgic sigh, but I was little. The Empire has 5 such ships, all of which are mobile military bases. The Justice, if I know it right, should be on the Eastern Front. What I gathered, Elliot explained to us, the East reached an agreement of a 2-year ceasefire. The ship has been called back for resupply and maintenance. Well, that is the official story. I knew that they wouldn't have any more information about it, not without ranks, so I slowly tuned their talking out. Instead, my eyes were drawn towards the inner city walls that were getting bigger and bigger. I saw as the sun finally rose high, illuminating the land, and I felt goosebumps growing all over my body just thinking about the ship's deep horn once again. I had to re-evaluate some things in my mind. I assumed the world was in a similar state of development in every corner of this Ashilia Empire. Evidently not. Some regions were left behind compared to others. I guess this happens when an empire focuses on gaining new territories instead of developing existing ones. Are they aiming to conquer the world? Sooner or later, they would hit a wall. Ignoring the growing problems and such profound differences within the same empire would do that. With how things were developing on my end, there was a high chance that I would be that wall. If that ever happens, I will need to get ready. I must develop measures against mages, a stronger army, and superior magic technology. If they have flying ships that they are happy to show to the public, there must be more hidden weapons, which are only seen on the battlefield. The fact that they even consider mortar to be a state secret and won't divulge it, holding architectural advancement as a weapon, was telling enough. This way, they could determine which region grows to which size, easily keeping places below a certain level. Divide and conquer. They held the reins firmly and dictated how parts of the empire grew. Which in turn tells me that our domain is deliberately kept as a barbarian outback. I don't know how other territories are, but I can't go and travel the world. Time is of the essence, and I need to use it to the best of my abilities. From now on, I will have to look at the world as if it is much more advanced than my home and act accordingly. Stop. Turning towards the voice, I saw multiple heavily armored guards approaching the carriage. They were unlike the ones at the bridges, and I could see engraved magic circles on their pauldrons and on one of their shields. What for? I couldn't tell for sure, but they couldn't be witches and wizards. Maybe if a mage is nearby, they can boost their abilities. While I was thinking as to why they had them on their armor, the soldiers checked the carriage and our identities before letting us pass. Passing through the 10-meter-tall gate, I realized the wall wasn't just as tall as a high-rise building but also just as massive. It was at least 15 meters wide, and I could see tunnels leading deeper inside its inner structure. This thing wasn't simply a wall, it was a fortress. Coming out of the other end, the road was no longer made of cobblestone, it was flat, smooth like marble. The houses were 3 stories tall at maximum, but all of them were their own villas, luxuriously decorated with statues and masterfully crafted dioramas. Anyone living here is a decision-maker in the empire. Father whispered to me, seeing me scan the buildings we were passing by, having family names written on their front gates with gold. You don't need to envy their homes. I do not. I answered with a smile, there are tasteful decorations, and then there is wasteful extravaganza. This is the latter. Buildings should be pleasing to look at and not cluttered with nonsense. There is a thing called sensory overload, when your eyes don't know what to look at, losing its focus. You have interesting ideas. Elliot chuckled, but soon, his smile was gone, replaced with the nervousness he was trying to hide. I saw the same thing in my father for the first time, but I couldn't fault him. From what they told me, whatever the Empress wished for was granted. So, who knows what she will think about our little story. But this also meant we had already won if we could persuade her. Arriving at the palace, it had its own courtyards, and yes, multiple of them. We parked at the front entrance, and after getting out of our carriage, a butler-like man, accompanied by more guards, was waiting for us. This time, we bowed and greeted him respectfully. Even though he was not a noble, the fact he served the royal family made him their extension. Disrespecting him was the same as doing to the empress. The items had been investigated, and the supporting evidence looked through. The services of your regions are recorded, and the audience with the empress will be granted shortly. Please follow me. While speaking, he only looked at us once. Most of the time, his eyes were looking past our faces or over our heads, continuing to ignore us in an arrogant, posh way. Of course, my thoughts remained hidden, making sure my face wouldn't betray me as we followed the men into the palace. The first room reminded me of a museum with giant paintings on the walls and shiny, armored statues decorating the floor. We weren't there for long as we were quickly led through multiple chambers into the throne room. We were the first to come and stop before the golden throne that was elevated from the ground by 4 rounds of concentric steps. We were silent, just like the guards who stood 3 steps behind us. They became the identical statues I had seen before, making me wonder if they were indeed that or if they were also guards back there. If yes, then they blended in quite nicely. To not get bored quick, I let my eyes continue scanning the room as we made to wait for almost an hour. We couldn't step away, sit down, or even talk. We just stood there, silent, right until I heard a door open somewhere and heavy footsteps coming our way, followed by a pair of much sharper clankings. They were clearly high heels hitting the marble floor, but as per the order, I couldn't look up at her. But I could look at the floor and her legs. Without moving my head, my eyes darted towards my right, and I caught the bottom of her feet, right up to her ankle. She was wearing black high-heeled shoes with golden straps, and if the floors had been a bit more polished, I may have seen much more than that. I watched as she walked up to her throne, sitting down, shuffling around a little before speaking. I was informed of your discovery. Oh, her voice was a bit deeper than I expected. It was mature, with a hint of coldness accompanying it, and it made me think of Sasha. She was the complete opposite of her, going by the feeling alone, but there was an underlying similarity. She has to be a witch. I had no other explanation for why I felt such a strong urge to think about Sasha when hearing the Empress's voice. Or was I missing her this much? That was also true. Which one of you is Elliot? It is me, Your Highness. I could hear the fear within my uncle's voice as he stepped forward, keeping in a bow, answering her questions, retelling the story once again. After that, it was my father's turn to do the same, and I was expecting my name to be called, but that didn't happen. The return of the resources was a satisfactory show of your loyalty. It is worthy of being rewarded. First, you will return with my decree. Elliot, you will present your brother's head and everyone working with him to me within 2 months. Then you will take over as the new Baron and ensure this thievery never happens again. Yes, Your Highness. Second, Kalash. Yes. Father saluted, stepping forward, keeping his head bowed. I expected nothing less from one of my guarding beasts. Good job, your reward will be a year's worth of tithes. You won't have to pay it this year. Thank you, Your Highness. Now. She continued, not even acknowledging their thanks at all, her voice remaining calm and somewhat bored throughout the conversation. The other point you presented to me. Leon, step forth and look at me. Finally. I was waiting for this. When I was allowed to look up, I was surprised as the Empress was young-looking, maybe in her mid-20s. She wore a black attire that was more revealing than anything I saw in the city. The best I could describe it was that it was like some kind of modern, black evening dress with deep cutouts that let her sides and legs show, especially the latter, as she crossed one over the other. Moving my eyes further up, without pausing, I could scan her slim figure and relatively small breasts, quickly jumping over them to not offend her, settling on observing her face. She was beautiful. In my time, she would be a top model with her deep, ruby-red eyes and long, black hair falling onto her bare shoulders. Even though her eyes were like fire, she looked at me with cold indifference, not even considering me worth talking to. At least, that is how I was feeling. Disgusting. Well. Thanks. I did not expect her to say that straight to my face. Was I in trouble? I didn't have anything to give as an answer, not that I could have in my position. I simply stood there, watching her calmly, waiting for her to continue or permit me to say anything. I hate how you look. There it was, she continued. Next time you visit me, shave your head. I don't want to see the color red on your head. Ever again. I will look this over, as this is your first visit here. As you command. I bowed, remaining unperturbed, but deep inside, I was laughing. What a weird, eccentric person. At least your ugly looks are paired with the correct personality. Raising her right hand, one of the armored guards walked forward, giving me a rolled parchment with the royal seal holding it together. From now on, you are the governor of the frontier. Be as productive as your father. That's it. She was about to stand up when my mouth opened, and I decided to go for it. It was on the spur of the moment, but let's risk it. If I die, I die. Isn't there more to being appointed to be the new Viscount? The moment my words left my mouth, I felt everyone stiffening. I even heard my father's body move forward a little before freezing. I watched as the Empress settled back in her chair, tilting her head slightly and looking over me a second time. Your family will be presented with a list of free servant lineages to choose from and bring them back to the frontier. After a bit of pause, I was about to speak again, going against my own thoughts, but luckily, it was her who spoke first. I heard a weird rumor. Of a barbarian mutilating his wife. Rumors tend to be that. Rumors. Not all of them are coincidental, and many are birthed from straight-up malicious intentions. That is true. I read you had a hand in discovering that your uncle stole my belongings, young Viscount Leon. A small one, yes. I discovered the plot when touring my territory and responding to a bandit attack. Those nobles dash. Nobles. She laughed sharply, covering her lips with one hand. You call those dregs nobles? Ha, you frontier people do have a kind of humor, I will admit that. Ha, well, it was best if I stopped speaking. It did feel like I stretched my luck to a snapping point. At least I can bring back a family to serve me, and I already have someone in mind. My goal was achieved, time to retreat. So be it. A bit of backbone is needed to lord over a savage place like that. She continued, surprising me that showed on my face, which in turn made her smile. I saw it in her eyes, she was enjoying my dumbfounded look. I will give you a personal reward. Ask me for something, but if it makes me angry, I will order you to be beheaded. I want to visit a library with books about magic. My answer was instant, said right when she finished her word. Now it was my time to surprise her and everyone else present in the throne room. I don't want the books, guards can accompany me while I'm in there. I just want to read them. I wouldn't dare take away anything from your highness. I waited patiently for the silence to end. Finally, it was the sharp laughter of the Empress that broke it, and I could feel that she was greatly amused but also mocking me. You. Reading magic books. Ahahaha. This is the best thing I have ever heard. You wouldn't understand half of it. Ahahaha. Can you even read? I can. I answered with a bow, maintaining a kind smile. I have been interested in magic since my birth. I know I am talentless, but I'd like to read about it. Sure. She continued laughing, but that word alone made me giddy deep inside. I just hit the jackpot. For making this Empress laugh so hard, I will grant you access to my private library. Your Highness. Multiple voices appeared as people I hadn't seen before emerged from the shadows. Shut up. It is my decision. She growled at them, her smile disappearing in a snap of a finger. Leon of the Frontier. You are only allowed into the library if accompanied by my guards and completely naked. She added with an evil smirk, not expecting me to nod at once. Ha ha ha. Yes, this is why your frontier people are interesting. Ha. With that, she didn't wait any more, standing up and leaving, laughing now and then, still finding my request hilarious. Father wanted to approach me, but multiple guards led them away while I was escorted in a different direction. I mouthed to him not to worry, although my stomach felt like two hands were squeezing it. I was closely guarded and taken to the back of the palace, then down underground on a spiral staircase. By my estimations, we were at least 20 meters deep when we stepped off the steps, and I was ordered to strip. I didn't say anything while complying with their demands and instead began scanning the area around me. The room was made out of cold stone and lit up by multiple torches. There was only one door, which was made of dark iron with no visible locks or handles. It was as plain as one could be. When I was deemed clean, one of the guards knocked twice on it, and a moment later, with a visible shudder, it began sliding into the walls. Behind it, I could already see an extensive and well-lit library, but what was more surprising was that an old man stood at the other end, wearing what I could only describe as a bathrobe with the images of stars sewn into it. Was that a mage's robe? Or was this some kind of nursery for old people, and I just woke up poor grandpa? Why is this boy naked? He asked, surprised to see me, raising an eyebrow, leaning on a walking stick that I quickly noticed to have an apricot-sized CC embedded into it. Her Majesty's order. One of the guards answered, saluting. He is to freely peruse the library while we accompany him. Is he a new inductee? No, he wouldn't be naked and escorted by you then. He grumbled, stroking his long, white beard while I watched the light reflect from the top of his bald scalp. He is a normal human who asked to read about magic. PFT. What a dumbass. If not for his age and him being probably related in some way to the Empress because of his red eyes, I would have become angry, but oh well. It is best if they think I am some idiot barbarian, so I just smiled amicably at them. I could only thank my luck that it wasn't a witch to welcome me, or I may have had some problems being naked. Led inside, I could see hundreds of books neatly organized in row after row of bookshelves. Go, browse. The old man waved his hand dismissively at me before turning to the guards. I wanted to call for you anyway, come with me. I need some helping hands. I am old enough to refuse to haul boxes from the basement. But we were ordered to dash, they said, sounding troubled, but he tapped the ground with his stick, sending loud echoes around, silencing them. Even if my great-granddaughter sits on the throne, I was the emperor of your ancestors. You do what I tell you. This little idiot won't be able to damage anything here, not to mention stealing any of the tomes. His little puckered asshole is as virgin as it gets, I can tell. Now come, I don't have all day. Fuck me. I mean, don't. Shit, the royal family is messed up in the head. I couldn't help but stand still, watching them leave before turning my back to them and looking at the overwhelming knowledge before me. Calm down. I whispered before walking to one of the shelves, randomly picking out a book and flipping through it. It was filled with complex diagrams and theories, followed by pages of calculations. I was not here to understand them, that can wait for later. Come on, brain, do your thing. I thought to myself, beginning to concentrate and quickly flip through them. I relied on my enhanced memory to remember all the information, taking a snapshot of them to recall and review later. Who says you need magic when you have a cheat? Son. I'm fine. I smiled, arriving back home and welcoming my father after being away for a whole day. What did they do to you? He asked, holding me by the shoulders, supporting my swaying body, looking at my tired expression and bloodshot eyes. Nothing. I chuckled. I was simply up for all the time, barely blinking, reading probably 10,000 pages. Or more. I feel dead. You look destroyed. Laughed Yuri, scrutinizing me with a grin while Oleg kept an eye on her, afraid she would attack me. Should I suck you off to relax? I would fall asleep at once, and I don't trust you with that yet. You, meanie. Enough. Father interrupted us, leading me inside. Go, fetch me that girl, Luna. She will take care of him. You two go start preparing, we are heading home at once. Dad. I'm sleepy. I moaned, wanting to just fall into a bed and sleep. You will sleep when we are on the carriage. And you too, why are you still here? I gave an order, didn't I? Yes. Oleg saluted first, dragging Yuri away while father accompanied me into my room. Tell me, son, did they torture you? I told you that nothing happened. I grinned, my head simply hurts because I memorized almost a whole library. You did what? He whispered, his eyes flashing dangerously. I memorized. A lot. Yeah. I chuckled, seeing his expression change from shock to awed and then settling on a dangerously excited look. Exactly. I still need to make sense of it, but their hubris is going to cost them a lot. Did you check the boy? Asked the cold, indifferent voice, standing before a mirror that now, instead of reflecting the face of the Empress, showed the underground library and the face of the old wizard. Magicless nobody. You don't have to worry about him. He has as much magic in him as a rat would. I wanted to make sure. You can't trust one with red hair. You are more paranoid than me, girl. The line of Vesa was killed off. There are no living witches or wizards with red hair. Haven't been for more than 1,000 years. You already know this. The first emperor made sure their line was butchered. Everybody was killed, even the chickens and their bedbugs. We can't be sure. If their blood lives, they could dash. No, they couldn't. The old man countered, waving his hand. Nobody remembers the Vesas, they are a dead bloodline. Nobody will come to ask back their throne. Even if they did, who would even know about them? Only ghosts. The world has forgotten them, you should, too. Your obsessions will be your end, girl. Okay. So, the boy was fine. Yeah. Anyone with red hair nowadays is nothing but a coincidence. This little boy was just a barbarian, thinking he would understand the profound secrets of magic. A delusional nobody. Okay. I got it. You can really go on and on about nothing. The Empress groaned, cutting the connection and looking at her own reflection in the mirror before grinning. With a satisfied smile, she stood up, walking to her window, watching the full moon above the city, not knowing, far away from the city, in a rolling carriage, Leon couldn't wipe off the smirk from his face, not even when sleeping. After my father accompanied me back to the mansion, he ordered Luna to come over at once and tasked her with bathing me. At first, she was adamant about refusing but stopped after she saw my father's eyes. I could fall asleep. I murmured as she stood beside the bathtub, washing my back. Her tiny fingers were fantastic and massaged me like a professional. Please don't, Master said we need to leave. I am just doing my best to revitalize you. You are doing great. I added with a moan, and I wasn't lying as it made me feel giddy inside, and ready for action below my waist. Were you trained or something? Yes. She replied honestly, and although my eyes were closed, resting them after the ordeal of going through thousands of books, I could tell she was trying hard not to peek into the water. I am a trained maid. Please don't punish me, not too hard, at least. She added with a murmur at the end, her breath audibly speeding up. Why would I? You are doing great. Because of what happened. Huh. Okay, it was time to open my eyes. She wasn't making any sense. After turning around, our faces were way too close, and I could feel her sweet breath and watch as she panicked, stepping back quickly, trying her best not to glare at my naked body. Explain, please. Your father has chosen my family to be your new servants and, well, it seems only I will travel with you back. Huh. Why? What happened? The family fell apart and fled. She answered, lowering her head and looking at the ground, honestly ashamed of the others. They chose the life of a vagrant instead of going to serve a barbarian. Oh. What about you? Weren't you quick enough on your feet? I blurted out, and the way she snapped her head up, looking hurt and angry, her mismatched eyes filling up with tears, I could tell my joke was inappropriate. I am Luna Gottfried. I don't shirk my duties. Sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I answered with a smile, standing up, which was a mistake as my unsheathed sword was pointing straight at her face. Her troubled stare quickly chased away the anger, and she grew red as if choking on something. She was focusing on the top of my weapon before hurriedly grabbing a towel and stretching it towards me, turning her head away. Thanks. I was tempted to tease her and make her dry me up, but that would probably go too far and hurt her. She will be my personal maid from now on, so I wanted her to feel safe with me. While I was drying myself, she picked out my traveling clothes, and I won't lie, after her massage, I felt much more revitalized. So, they can just ignore us and not follow the decree. If they forego their identities, yes, nobody would bat an eye, and I don't think you have any allies here to help you find them. Master. True enough. Oh well. One is more than nothing, and you can help me back home in choosing capable people and teaching them. Of what? She looked at me, watching me dress up, and I didn't miss how she was biting her lower lip for a moment. Of how to become a proper maid, duh. Why yes. Master. Don't sigh too hard. You will be surprised. Sure. She moaned, whispering it ever so lightly, making me chuckle. I knew she was thinking she was leaving the center of civilization to move into a mud hut in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't going to explain, as that would not do justice. It was best to let her see it for real when we arrived. It was no time to stay and rest, however. As we boarded the carriage, Father and Uncle were sitting opposite of me while Luna was on my right. I saw that she was nervous and wasn't really getting why we were in such a hurry, so I asked Father in her stead. We could have waited a little, no. No. They answered in tandem, surprising me. This is not about the city being dangerous, isn't it? I asked, and even if I was tired, I could pick up on the anxiety of the two. It is. Especially now as 3 dead people have turned up. Elliot answered, looking at me directly, making me flinch. 3 castrated bodies of young nobles. Yuri. I shouted, scaring Luna even more as I leaned out of the carriage, and she rode up to us from behind. What's up, boss? I was momentarily stunned but then shook my head, glaring at her. Did you do it? Do what? Don't smile at me. That can't be a coincidence. Oh, the news. I heard about it. But no, it wasn't me. Promise. She disappeared for an hour and a half. Oleg added, riding up to the other side of the carriage, my apologies, my lord. It was my fault. Shit, you crazy bitch. I moaned, feeling my headache returning. We are innocent. She giggled happily, we were in the villa the whole time, weren't we? Yeah, we were, fuck. I grumbled, looking at her, twitching my eyelids. It wasn't us, boss. She repeated honestly, trying to look innocent, but I wasn't buying it. All the evidence points towards the Zylok family. And how would you know that? How do you even know that name, and I don't? You know what? I shouted, raising a hand, don't even answer that. I don't want to know. I want to remain in my sweet ignorance. I already guessed that from the 4 of those silk pants, the living one will be the scapegoat, for whatever reason. I tend to forget that Yuri is like wielding a revolver with 5 blanks and 1 live round. Right now, that bullet discharged without me aiming. With an angry groan, I leaned back, placing my head into Luna's lap and making her stiffen even more. Massage my head, please. It hurts like hell. Why yes, master. She gulped, beginning to do so as I let my mind relax and fell asleep. Soon, I couldn't help but smile as we were traveling back home with a ton of new knowledge in my mind. I dreamt about them throughout the following days, seeing the secrets of magic whirling before my mind's eye. I just had to make sense of it all slowly and steadily. What is this? Luna stuttered as we were still in the carriage, nearing my mostly finished city. The last of the buildings were about to be completed, and most of the workers were clearing the way where my first defensive wall would be erected. Ah, yeah, so this is my personally designed and built city. I get that it differs from where you grew up, but I hope you will like it in the future. It is still bare bones. I will have to start planting trees and flowers to give it a color besides that of stone and dash. How are you able to build it? She screamed, almost falling out of the carriage, climbing out the small window, wanting to see more. I had to grab onto her waist before she had an accident, pulling her back. Well, I am somewhat of no better way to put it, a separatist. As my personal maid, you will learn about it anyway. What I am doing here is building my own empire. The thing we told the Empress. Lies. You see, in the future, this land will be independent. You are mad. She said, turning white, then back to pink as blood rushed to her head. Maybe. I just want to live well. Aren't we all? Ahaha. Now that you are here, you are also part of it, so it isn't that you have any choice but to follow me, HM. There was no better way to put it, and her silence was partially because of the shock she just received. It was best to stay silent for now and let her process everything. When I got out of the carriage, I heard Sasha shouting my name, and by the time I turned, she was already there, jumping onto me, hugging my neck, her legs clamping around my waist and kissing me so passionately I almost fell backward. Thank the gods, you are back. She moaned, her eyes wet, not wanting to let go, and I didn't want to either. I told you that all will be fine. I giggled, holding her by the butt, feeling myself getting excited, and I wanted nothing more than push her down. A few weeks go by, and you become this clingy, Maybe I should go away more often. No. She protested, turning shy and finally climbing down but holding my arm. You didn't. She whispered, looking at my crotch, noticing the bulge, and I knew what she was thinking. Not once. Yet I tried. Yuri added with a sour voice, climbing down from her horse and making Sasha bloom into an even prouder, happier smile. Master. Luna murmured, looking lost and a bit troubled, not knowing what she should do. Mistress. Huh. Sasha flinched, looking at her and back at me, feeling awkward as nobody had called her that before. She is Luna Gottfried, a maid from the capital city who was assigned under me by an imperial decree. From now on, she will be our personal maid. She is cute. Sasha murmured, making Luna smile a little, bowing towards her. She is reliable, you will see. I already thought about what her role would be, but first, let her settle in. Can you show her around? Sure. She answered happily, making Yuri grunt with displeasure. Why are you so nice to her but not to me? Because. That is not an answer. I don't need to explain myself to you, Eurybiseda. She scoffed with an air of royalty, making Yuri shiver, licking her lips, giving her a look filled with desire. Shit girl, you are starting to fire my pussy up. Not before the child. Sasha cried out, covering Luna's ears with her hands, making her so surprised she looked at me with befuddled eyes, asking for help. I am not a kid. She spoke up after I nodded at her to feel free to interject. I have been an adult since 5 years ago. I am already 16. Sasha flinched as she mistook her to be much younger. Sorry. I'm used to it, my mistress. She bowed elegantly, looking around, feeling a bit dizzy as she never knew nobles who would act like this, not just before their maids but before others, before their subjects. Things are different here. I chuckled, watching my people coming over, welcoming me back with shouts and waving their hands happily. You'll see, and I will let you adjust to our region, Luna. Don't worry about anything yet. Sasha will show you around, and we will prepare your own room in the palace. Ah. You are our maid, no. What did you think I would send you live far away from us? I laughed, watching the rising excitement in her face, overgrowing her doubts about this barbarian region of the empire. For now, I will go, check on how you all did with the things I left for my people to complete. Sasha. Yes. She turned towards me just so I could draw her close and kiss her passionately, making her almost melt in my arms. Be ready by night. I'm pent up. I whispered into her ears that she simply returned with a happy moan and a nod, her eyes glowing in a fiery passion. After calling up the people I trusted with my tasks before leaving, I hosted the very first council meeting. It happened in my throne room, which was much more decorated by now. The empty walls had paintings of landscapes depicting the mountains around us, while the wide, dark red wooden table before my throne hosted my future ministers. Not all seats were filled, only a quarter of them, but it was a start. They wore casual clothes, looking like peasants, but that didn't matter. What was important was that I began establishing multiple departments and delegating work to capable people. The fact I was smiling eased their worries as I looked at the 3 men, 2 women, and 1 lonely child amongst their ranks. Surprisingly, it was the kid, Merlin, who looked the most ready, swinging his legs, wanting to jump up and give his report already. It is good to be back. I started, nodding at Merlin first. I see you can barely sit still. Let's hear what you have to say, Prime Minister Merlin. Yes, Your Highness. He stood up, standing on his chair so I could see him bow. I oversaw and coordinated the collective while you were away. The construction of the city is going to be officially completed before the end of fall, right before schedule. Good work. I returned earlier than expected and am glad you all worked harder than my expectations. Of course. Merlin nodded, feeling that it was the most evident thing of all. Not just that, I made sure that the less talented builders began clearing the way to let us start constructing the walls as soon as possible. How's the mine expansion that I asked for? Yes. Merlin nodded, looking at one of the men, prompting him to stand up. I could see how nervous he was while holding the edge of his clothes. From the looks of it, he was in his 30s, already balding a little, and his skin was rough from all the hard work he had done in the past. Your Majesty. He bowed to me, mimicking Merlin, but he was much stiffer. My name is Paxson, the, Minister of Mining. Huh. I think it was Merlin who gave him the rank. I would have used the word industry, but I liked how his brain worked, so it is okay. Well met, Paxson. Please continue, you don't have to be afraid. Just report the current progress. Thank you, Your Majesty. The mine has been constantly expanding. We are still not at the designated size, but we managed to produce enough slabs for the wall to begin building, and we found a vein of iron going deep into the mountains. Oh. Good, I was expecting that after what we saw at the original spot. Continue as you were. We will begin opening up a proper mine, so start collecting people who will work it. I need that iron. Merlin, I will need a formal report about the salary of Dash. It is already done, Your Majesty. He answered proudly, getting out a parchment from his robes, letting it roll down, and reading it loudly. I was initially surprised, but then I couldn't help but praise my luck for finding such a kid. He already worked out everything without me telling him to do so. Am I a bad person? Is this child labor? Not that there are any laws against it yet, huh? Lucky me. That's my initial calculations, Your Majesty. I have earned a free year, so I won't have to pay tithe for the next cycle. We can finance our endeavors from the treasury, and I plan to expand our tradings. I knew I didn't have anybody for that position overseeing our trade routes. But I already had a candidate in my mind. My mother. If anybody, she would be perfect for the post. Merlin nodded in the meanwhile, thinking rapidly, that would do, but we do need to fill up the treasury. With what we rob, confiscated from the nobles, those won't last for long. When commerce is getting steady, taxes will be introduced. I added, forgetting that I was talking with a kid, taking Merlin as an equal. No. He was an equal. For now, let me worry about that. Paxson, continue as you were and focus on extracting the iron ore. We should focus on establishing a proper industry and creating superior tools we can sell. A well-crafted sword worth more than a lump of iron. Yes, Your Majesty. He bowed, sitting down, wiping his forehead with a silly, happy smile. What about the food production? I want to cut our imports by at least half in the coming years. Merlin. I asked, curious about what they came up with. Yes. He nodded, looking at another minister, and this time, one of the middle-aged women with tied-up black hair stood up, bowing in the same manner. My name is Zeta, Your Majesty. I have been tasked with overseeing our food stocks and reviewing your outlines while you were away. Good to meet you. Please, continue. First, as you suggested, we collected as many seeds as possible. We are in the middle of relocating people who were previously under the government of the now-dead minor nobles. We will have around 6,000 people distributed between 5 villages who will focus on working the fields. Did you take my plans into consideration? I asked, and it was Merlin who answered. Naturally. The villages will work independently. They will choose their village elder, who is going to be our spokesperson, and I made sure to stress that they follow the plans for crop rotation and the preservation of soil fertility. I had to host some private lessons so they understood its logic. But if I may, Your Majesty, I don't think they get it. Not everyone is like you. I chuckled, making him blush. As long as they follow the plans, it is all good. When we have time, we will improve the villages. We will build them proper homes, mills, and anything else that helps our local production. Besides crops, start focusing on sheep and goats. We must buff their numbers. They will provide us with not just meat, but their wool is perfect for making more than just clothes. Understood, Your Majesty. Zeta bowed, sitting back down. After we have enough resources in storage, we can start trading. To speed that up, I plan to build a road network to our borders. But for now, don't worry about it. I just want Merlin to keep that in the back of his mind. I chuckled, trying to further ease the mood before listening to the others. Hearing the rest, I was happy that everything worked smoothly while I was gone. There were no problems with the water, By now, the fact that bathing was so readily available was becoming the norm among the people. Good. Diseases were not what I was looking for, so my immediate problem would be finishing the sewer system. For now, it was leading far away into an open field. That was anything but ideal, but with my new knowledge in my head, a solution was very near. I just needed a little magic to help me with it. I listened to the rest for the following hour, encouraging them to continue before adjourning the first official meeting between us, asking Merlin to stay back a little. The little guy was like a hamster on coffee right now. He was in his natural element, ready to work, and work, his brain requiring challenges. Calm down. I laughed, patting his head while he was bombarding me with questions about what it was like in the city. I will tell you everything, but before that, here. A present. He yelled, taking the thick stack of papers from me. Kinda. I read a lot of books while I was away and found a description of your magic. When we were coming back home, I summarized it for you. They call it chameleonic transmutation, but that is unimportant. Your powers are designed to amplify other spells. I compiled an approach to help you understand yourself from what I gathered. This has descriptions of its characteristics and how similar wizards used it in past occasions for reference. It is a rare ability, so be proud, Merlin. Not many mages exist who can do what you can. Wah. Thank you, Your Majesty. He bowed multiple times, taking it away, looking just as excited as a kid on Christmas morning. Go, you can study it at your leisure, but I will need your experiences later on. What are we going to do? I am drawing up in my head a new formation that should allow us to purify the sewer water. I am still working on putting it together for now, but when I'm ready, we will start running tests. Cool. He wanted to know more, but I told him to study what I gave him. I will only tell him more when he finishes his current studies. Nothing can be rushed when it comes to magic. I missed you. I whispered as I was kissing Sasha's neck, sitting with her inside our bathtub, surrounded by multiple candles. My hands held her perky breasts while she was grinding her bottom against my crotch, splashing water everywhere. Me too. She moaned, chuckling happily before slipping her hand between her thighs and holding onto me as she sat down on my spear, giving me another happy moan. How, you already shot it out. She leaned back, giggling, keeping her waist moving continuously. Can't help it. I told you I was pent up. I bet. Tell me about it. I will do the moving, you just relax. You vixen. You know, I can barely concentrate with you sitting on me. The way you massage my second brain down there short-circuits my primary one. Ahaha. Silly. With a laugh, she turned around on me, pressing onto my chest as she began riding me with even more vigor than before. I thought you were smart enough to focus on multiple things. Cheeky. I may be able to do it, but I don't want to. I will retell everything tomorrow. Tonight, I want to only think about you. We continued enjoying ourselves, and when I lifted her out of the water, bringing her over to the bed to keep mounting her from behind, I noticed that our door was slightly open. It was only a quick glimpse, but I could swear I saw a violet eye peering in, the little pervert. Hee. Somehow, the knowledge she was peeping on us made me even more excited, so I decided to not tell Sasha about it. Not even when we were finished an hour later, laying there, her hot body spread out on me with a satisfied smile. How's our new maid? I asked, purposely not looking toward the door. She is polite and intelligent. But do we need a maid? I can also do the housework and dash. For now. But you will also have your own responsibilities. Sooner or later we won't have time to deal with everything. She will be the head maid and assemble her own little crew whose task will be keeping the palace prim and proper. She told me about what happened in the restaurant. That was dangerous. Not really. I smiled in answer, kissing her lips. They scrambled the moment they thought their sexy time would include horrendous pain. You want to do it like that? What? No. I answered immediately, but she quickly raised an eyebrow as my voice didn't convince her. Neither me. Okay. I found the idea of being a little bit more forceful arousing, but not to that extent. Then to what extent? She questioned me curiously, drawing circles on my chest, hitting. Maybe spanking. But not like, literally punching you. No way. Other than that, maybe doing it a bit rougher. How about hair pulling? Choking. I heard a faint whisper that almost made me choke, too. Ah. She laughed out suddenly, surprising me, but also made it so she didn't hear Luna's drunken voice coming from behind the door. What? I asked, pouting, and she kept laughing before flicking my nose. You are embarrassed. I never saw you this way before. She continued giggling, teasing me as she sat up on my stomach. So what if I am? It is embarrassing to talk about what you find exciting. I don't want you to think of me weirdly. I don't mind. You can do those things to me. I will tell you if I don't like it so you can stop, but until then, feel free to experiment with me. I am yours, Leon, not just in body. With a whisper, she leaned forward, kissing me, initiating the night's second round, lasting for another hour.